Testing, there we go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 2023 Annual General Meeting for Lancashire County Cricket Club. My name's Lee Morgan, and I'm the Club Secretary. First thing I can confirm is that looking around the room, we've got enough people here to be quorate, so at least we know the meeting can go ahead, which is a good start. I think, therefore, I'll declare the meeting open, and I'll hand over to our President, Howard Bernstein, who will chair the meeting from here on.
Thanks very much indeed. Good evening, everyone. As is customary at our annual events, our annual meetings, I should start off by referring to some of the sad losses we've experienced over the last 12 months. Most notably, our patron, Her Majesty the Queen, and also the loss of some of our players, particularly Andrew Symonds and Ian Cockburn, and also certainly the famous personality, our PA announcer, John Gwynn. And on behalf of you, can we extend our sincere condolences to their families and friends? And in accordance with our usual practice, can I just ask all of us to stand and just share a few moments of reflection on their behalves. Thank you. Can I ask the Secretary to read out the apologies for absence which he has received, if any?
Two apologies for absence. It's Georgina Bennett and Jill Bennett.
Thank you. Can we move to the substantive agenda? There were minutes of the AGM, which took place on the 21st of April of last year, and also the SGM, which took place on the 12th of October. The minutes of those meetings have been circulated. I believe there's been one question raised, particularly in relation to the minutes for the SGM. Do you want to report on that, please?
Yes, no comments on the AGM minutes, but on the SGM minutes, a member raised a point, and it concerns those of us who remember that the key topic of discussion at that meeting was the scheduling of domestic cricket, and following the ECB and Andrew Strauss's report. And I think the point that was raised was, despite there was lots of discussion and debate about what the club's views were on different kind of structures, and there was reference made to an omission regarding the club's views. And following a more detailed review of the transcript from that meeting, when I looked at what was raised by the member who's raised the point and looked at everything in context, I am satisfied that the board minutes do summarise and reflect the club's position. But what I will do is I will go back to the member who raised the point and clarify exactly why that was the case, and why the club's support for maintaining 14 matches of first-class cricket every year was very much a focal point of the message that we were seeking to get across. So I don't believe the AGM/SGM minutes neither needs to be amended, but I will go back to that member concerned to clarify the position.
Thank you. Subject to there not being any further queries, can I formally ask for those minutes of both the AGM and the SGM to be agreed as a correct record? Thank you. I've not received any note of any further matters arising of those minutes. Can I therefore start and introduce the club chair, Andy Anson, who's actually going to give us an overall statement about the executive brief. Sorry, is there? I can't see it if there is. Forgive me.
So, Alan, sorry, there's a microphone coming round so we can all hear a second.
Who's this? I can't see him.
Thank you, Mr. President. The matter arising that I would just like to raise, and perhaps Lee may confirm that it's going to be dealt with later in the meeting, which is fine. At the end of the SGM, the club issued a statement which I thought was an excellent one, struck exactly the right tone, and it referred to wanting to improve the two-way communication particularly with the section of the membership who have some concerns about certain aspects of how things are done. So I was just hoping that there would be at some point, because I couldn't see it anywhere else on the agenda, an update on what the club has done with regard to that commitment, or what might be planned in the near future. Thank you.
Can we take that as one of the questions at the end to be dealt with by the chair? Thank you. Any other questions? It's difficult to see, but I suspect not. So can I now formally move on to the next stage of the agenda and invite Andy, the club chair, to actually give us a statement and to introduce the executive team who are going to supplement it. Andy.
I'm going to go to the podium. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the AGM. It's good to see you. Hope everything's going well. Sad that the game got washed out earlier, but hopefully we'll get some cricket tomorrow and subsequent days. Just quickly to introduce everyone on stage, so you all know who is who here. Sarah Tompkins, who, amongst other things, looks after our nominations committee. Navin Singh, who joined the board this year, who also works for the FA. Rachel Downey, who's been on the board for a couple of years or more. Lee Morgan Howard, you know already. Daniel, our CEO, I know is very familiar. James Sheridan, who is our senior independent exec. Les Platts, who is our sadly departing treasurer. And John Abrams. I can't see you, John. So anyway. And John Abrahams, who needs no introduction. So, as I said, welcome to the AGM. This meeting provides us with an opportunity to both look back at the last 12 months and to look forward to the things that are coming down the path at Emirates Old Trafford this year, both on and off the field. So on the field, looking back, I think the men's team had a good run last year, coming second in every competition, which was fantastic in many ways, but I think we all know that a club of this size and stature needs to go one step further and bring home the silverware, and I know that everyone is focused on that. So although it's a great achievement, we're certainly not resting on our laurels, and I do think that bringing home silverware on a more consistent basis has to be at the top of our agenda of things that we need to achieve, and I know that everyone here is preparing and understands that. I'm keen to pay tribute to Dane Vilas, who's been the captain for the last 4 years, who's now stepped down. For those of you who know Dane, he's a fantastic leader and ambassador for this club. He's a genuinely good person and a great cricket person. So he's done his 4 years and he's stepped down, but he's stepped down with good grace, and he's still very much part of the setup here and part of the leadership setup. And Keaton, of course, has taken over the captaincy in all formats. Sadly, torn his hamstring and is recovering at the moment, but we wish him all the best for a successful season in all formats. Again, he's another fantastic ambassador and someone who we're lucky to have at this club. He's a top guy. Last year, the Thunder, our women's team, made good progress, and it was good to see the steady progress they were making, but again, we need to see more progress. We want to see things continue to improve. We're making great strides. We've recruited some good new talent, especially on the batting side of the Thunder, and we're hoping again to, in the next few years, bring home silverware in the women's cricket. And I think we're all seeing the growth in women's cricket as one of the most exciting developments in this sport, and it's something that we as a club are very much supportive of and are trying to drive forward. It was great to see for the second year running both our men's team and our women's team go on tour to Dubai together. The men stayed in Dubai for getting on for 2 weeks and had played some games and did some intense training out there. The Thunder team trained for a week and then they went off to India, thanks to our partners at Hilton Hotel who took the women's team out, and they had a great week in India and learnt an awful lot, played games, trained, and saw the Women's Super League, Women's Premier League close up as well. So it's a very important, and it is something that we are committed to as a club. We were also very pleased last year that 20 of our players across the men and women's setup represented England at all levels. So it's important to us as a club that we are developing good talent and great young talent, and I think we're seeing with some of the young players in the men's first team at the moment, George Bell, Josh Bohannon, etc., that we've got some really fantastic talent again knocking on the door of international cricket, and that's something that we place a lot of emphasis on and will continue to do so. Off the field, you'll see we recently announced our results for 2022 and more of that later. But it was the first normal year after a couple of very difficult and challenging years due to the COVID pandemic. And also with having all of our normal fixtures with spectators back in the stadium, 3 international fixtures, 2 one-day internationals and 1 test match, 4 concerts, which Harry Styles, the Killers and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, as well as your favourite, the 100, taking place in August, which was also somewhat of a commercial success, if not always at the heart of all of our membership and fans. As we look forward, and the key areas of strategy where we're focusing as a business for the next 3 to 5 years, just to be clear, on-pitch success is number 1. I think for the men, we need at least 1 trophy in the next 3 years, and for the women, 1 trophy in the next 5 years. That's the minimum that we should be targeting for on the pitch. From a development point of view, the successful completion of the new development that you can see at that end of the ground, making sure that gets completed on time and is successful from all perspectives, and you know the fantastic lounge facilities there that will become a members' lounge on red ball and 50 over cricket days is a pretty special location, and actually the space below it is equally special, where we're going to have the museum amongst other things. Continuing to drive our profits is also important. You are aware that we've got a significant amount of debt now to fund the new development, and our focus now for the next few years has to be on paying down that debt and getting it back to a very manageable level, and that's a big part of what we're targeting. Embracing the EDI objectives of the club is important, so the diversity, inclusivity elements that we are being challenged daily by the ECB and the cricket community to embrace are very important and genuinely something that we want to go after in the best possible way. So it's very important that we do that. It's very important we do that working across the game of cricket, and I think we've got a good plan, but it's at its early stages of coming to fruition. I think there's always a lot more we can do in that area. And then the final one is to continue to drive growth in the membership. We've seen fantastic success this year in the scale and size of the membership growth, and we want to get to 15,000 members in the next few years, and that's our target. We've got to do it in a way that keeps the current membership happy. I'm very aware of that. We're not going to do that at any cost to the membership, but we have to do it in a sustainable way and be as good as Surrey are at doing this, and that's our ambition. Michael Hewson, who's our acting operations director, will be talking about the new development further in his presentation. I think that is very exciting. Just looking ahead to this year and the things that are happening, we've got the Ashes, and that's when the new development will come online, and that's obviously incredibly exciting for all of us, and let's hope the weather improves by that time of year. We've got a New Zealand T20 in September. And then off the field, with the hotel, our business in the last 12 months has been fantastic. The hotel is seeing record occupancy and revenues coming in, and our conference and events business has grown back. And also our commercial partners are at a record level as well, just around £2 million of commercial revenue. So we had a couple of questions that came in that I want to take at this point of time to address. So I'm going to pick 2 of them. There are other questions that will be addressed in other speeches, so hopefully we'll cover most of the questions that were raised in advance of the meeting. The first question was, what does success look like for Lancashire in the next 5 years? Now, my answer to that is kind of building on the key strategic initiatives I already talked about. But what does it look like? I think if you take the membership, I do think that what we're doing is beginning to grow the membership and recognise there are different types of members. So if we want to get to 15,000, that's great, but we have to also diversify that membership pool. Many more women and children joining the membership pool. I think that is absolutely vital. And we have plans for that, but those are plans that we want to discuss with you as we go on that journey of increasing the membership and making sure we're doing it in a sustainable way. The next thing that I see as successful is getting the Farrington second home for Lancashire up and running. And that, for me, is a vital element of what we're doing here as a county. The deal that we've got with Lancashire County Council to develop a second site is very important so that we can have a home for our second 11, for our women's team, for our youth teams, and a place where the team can play when we can't play at Old Trafford. But one thing I do want to stress, and this is following a conversation I had with one of you recently, is this is not in any way an excuse to take cricket away from Emirates Old Trafford and put it in another home. We're not looking to reduce the amount of cricket here in any way whatsoever. This is about us having a proper second home that we can create as we want to. And I think if we work together as a group, that we can create a really fun, vibrant and meaningful second home. For those of you who went to York last year to watch the 50 over game between Yorkshire and Lancashire, I thought that venue was fantastic, and I thought for hosting 2,000-3,000 people, it was just a wonderful place to play cricket. And I think we need to create that kind of spirit and atmosphere at Farrington once we've developed it. And I would ask that we pull together a group of members to help the club on that journey to make Farrington actually a really meaningful second home. What does success look? We also need to refurb our indoor and outdoor cricket training facilities, and that's an important part of the progress on the pitch. We want to be averaging £5 million of EBITDA a year and paying down that debt and overpaying down that debt in the next 5 years, hopefully, so we accelerate the payments. We want to be providing a Lancashire cricket experience in over 500 schools across the county and the northwest. And we want to continue to be a leader in developing talent that makes the England team. So that's what I think makes success, and those are the things that we're happy to discuss further. Second question, and I'll read this out. It says, in response to the speculation that a new T20 tournament might replace the 100 but encompass City-branded teams, can you give the members assurance that the club will either resist rebranding or at the very least that any vote by the club on future proposed changes to the domestic men's competitions that would see a team that is branded anything other than Lancashire or similar and using our ground as their home venue would first be put to the members, and the members would vote, and the members' vote would bind the way the club votes on such a change. So there's two things there. The rumours are pure speculation, right? So we have not been told anything about any proposed changes to the 100 at all. So there was an ECB meeting here yesterday. There are no proposals that have even been discussed with us. So I'm not sure where that story came from. It coincided with the ICC international meeting, so I don't know if there's pressure put on the ECB at that meeting or not to change the 100 format into a T20 format. But we don't know anything. But of course, first of all, any changes to domestic format require 2/3 vote from the counties. And then secondly, we would not do anything or go ahead with anything like that without consulting and embracing the views of our members. So let me put your mind at rest. There is nothing on the table at the moment for us to discuss, other than the ongoing fact that the 100 will exist until 2028 because the new deal that is being done between the ECB and Sky, the 100 is a pivotal part of that. Later in the meeting today, we will confirm the latest appointment onto the board here at the club, responsible for member services. And I think this is a big and important moment. So responsible for member services and communications, that will have been voted on by you, our members, and we look forward to working with the selected individual. And it is important that we go through this process, and I know it's very important to members that they have a vote on certain board members, and this is something that we are happy to discuss taking further, that we think that maybe there's another position on the board that could be another elected position. I think the process was good. It threw up some fantastic new candidates who weren't known previously, who are members, and I think we had a strong group of people. So we're happy to take that forward further, and again, through discussion with you and member forums, see what the best way of constituting the board is, whilst remembering at all times we've got to embrace the EDI numbers of the board that represent the communities of the Northwest and represent proper split on gender at the board level. I just want to say thank you at this point to the members of the MRG who've done so much work to try and represent member views, and we're very grateful to Colin and the team for everything they do and continue to do, and it is important. But I would say that I want the MRG to be as effective as it possibly can, and I know that there are members here and who aren't here who want the MRG to be more effective. And we're happy to have those discussions and figure out how that works. What we'd like to outline is a process whereby, after this meeting, we continue to have some dialogue about how we can make the MRG as effective as it possibly can, and we can have some member sessions to make sure that happens. And it's important that you have the opportunity to select people for the MRG who you feel represent you. So we're supportive of that, and we want the MRG to... So just so you're aware, twice a year now, the MRG come into the board meetings and present the issues and the opportunities that arise from their discussions with members. We want that to be an important part of the process, and I hope that the newly elected board member will have a very strong dialogue with the MRG and other members so that you feel that your views are being properly represented. I just wanted at this point to say thank you to all the staff at Lancashire. Daniel, thank you to you and your team and the executive team at the front, but all the staff here at Lancashire. They do a fantastic job. It's not simple because of the complexity of this business now, not just with the cricket, but with the concerts, the hotel, the conference and the events, and all the things that are going on all the time at this great venue and this great stadium. So I want to say a massive thank you to the staff. Over the last 3 years, we've been able to reward a member of staff with the David Hodgkiss OBE medal for a staff member who's contributed an enormous amount this year. So it gives me great pleasure at this point of my address to identify the person who's won the David Hodgkiss medal at this point. And the winner this year is someone who works tirelessly behind the scenes, who helped to introduce the success story that is Lancs TV. And I think you'd all agree that the ease with which we can watch Lancashire on live streams has really changed our ability to interact with the county. And it is definitely the best streaming product out there amongst the county crickets. And the fact that Sky took that stream and made it a live match on Sky for the first game against Surrey is really indicative of the quality of the production that goes into that. They wouldn't do that for every club without a doubt. It's got to be of sufficient quality. So the product is great. It's helped us engage with members and fans all around the country and the world. It's helped us engage with a lot of Indian cricket fans as well. And it is just a fantastic product, and it's something that, you know, I work my whole life in sports, and streaming live sports events is becoming increasingly more important for many sports that no longer get the coverage on terrestrial TV they do. So I think the way we've done it and the skill with which we've done it has been absolutely fantastic. So the person who did it and is the success story, the person behind the success story is also our communications director and does a fantastic job in that role. So I want to thank and everyone could give a big hand to James Price for winning the David Hodgkiss medal. As James does the first draft of my speech, it was quite hard to put that section in and try and... He kept asking me, do you need me to send you the words for the David Hodgkiss Award? And I just didn't answer, basically. So finally, I just want to thank you, our members. I think we've made great progress this year, and I think the member forums and the consultations around rule changes, etc., have been very helpful to us as a board, and hopefully helpful for you as members to feel like you are having an input into the thinking and processes that go on here at the club. It's vital that we have this relationship, and as I say, I'm keen to strengthen it and make sure we go further. So big thanks to you for your support, for sitting here through rain and sun and supporting the team, and for coming here tonight and caring enough to come here and vote and let us know your feelings. So we are incredibly grateful. We look forward to the new facilities where we can all spend more time together once they open, and we look forward to working with you to make Emirates Old Trafford the best possible place for you as members to come and watch cricket, and there's a lot more I think we can do in that regard. So thank you very much, and I'll speak later on in the evening, but thank you.
Andy, there's one last presentation for you to make.
Oh. And there's one last presentation, sorry. This was added afterwards. So tonight is a sad night in some ways for those of us on the board, because Les Platts, who is our 10-year serving treasurer, is stepping down from that role. And Les has been an absolute vital part of the board for the last 10 years. You will be aware that we've lived on a financial roller coaster for some of that time. COVID being the worst of that in many ways, and the issues that the club faced at that point of time. And Les has always been the person in the background, the sounding board, the sensible financial head who's helped us navigate these stormy waters and got the club to a place now where we're feeling very strong and very happy with where we are financially. And Les, he stood as interim chair when David sadly passed away, and he stepped into a void when the club was probably at its lowest and toughest points in many ways, and filled that with great grace and humour. He's been a fantastic counsel to me personally and to many others on the board. We will miss him, but hopefully you as members will elect him into the vice president role later in the evening, because if anyone deserves it, he deserves it. And so Les, on behalf of the members, the board, the executive team, and everyone who works here, can I just say a massive thank you. And I think we actually have a gift. We have a gift.
Very kind of you to clap so hard for me. I don't get that very often in life. I'm not going to give a finance speech. Don't forget the debt.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andy. Can we move on now? Can I invite Mark Chilton, our Director of Cricket, to give a report?
And Anne Hodson as well.
Yeah. They're not speaking at the same time.
Yeah, they're doing a dub act, I think.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Chairman's covered a few key points, but I've got a little bit more detail that you might be interested in. I hope for those of you that were here today, you enjoyed what cricket you saw. I suppose in some ways that's where I'll start, because in many ways I thought today's cricket was a reasonable reflection of the season so far to this point, because I know some of you will be interested in my thoughts on that. I guess we're a little bit frustrated to not have forced a win over the first 3 or 4 days, but as you saw today, very impressive periods of play, followed by frustrating periods of plays and nuggety, stubborn partnerships, followed by weather interruptions, seems to have been the sort of story of the 4 weeks that we've had and the 4 games previous to this one. That said, I think myself and the group are still very buoyant around some of the quality of cricket that we've played. I think if you look at that over the 4 games, I think 70%, 75% of our cricket has been of a very good standard. We've just let ourselves down a little bit in first innings runs, so we've just been playing catch up in the games a little bit, which has probably cost us 1 or 2 victories. But we're still, like I say, in a positive frame of mind. Hope we can get out there in the morning and bowl Somerset out and move on. I had 3 areas to touch on tonight. The first one was to just draw your attention to the key objectives. The chairman's already touched on what success looks like, answering that question. So just a little bit more detail for you on these 3 points, really. These 3 objectives are discussed and then agreed at board level, and this is what I'm held to account to. They apply for both the men's and the women's environments. In the men, we had a total of 13 players representing ECB teams throughout 2022. We fell just below the target of 7 local players, coming in at an average of 6.5, and as you well know, we were runners-up in all competitions. So yes, we want 2 competitions by 2028. We're pretty disappointed one of those wasn't last year. But as the chairman alluded to, still very motivated to go one step further this year. The women's team, they had 5 players representing ECB teams, 3 at senior level and 2 at the under-19 level. An average of 8 local players in their side, which is really encouraging for the future. And as you know, yet to push for trophies, but we're seeing some improved performances through last year. I hope you all agree. I certainly felt, reasonably satisfied with a lot of work we did last year, if not, tinged with a little bit of disappointment with not coming away with a trophy. Again, also the chairman touched on Farrington, but I think there's a picture of that. We're all very excited about this project and remains a key strategic objective for the club for several reasons, really. As much as we don't want to take too much cricket away from Old Trafford, I think it's fair to say that we are exhausting it to quite a degree, and over a long term, I think we have to be a little bit careful about ensuring that we're able to maintain these facilities to a world-class level. We've got a world-class venue, and we need to make sure that the facilities that we have here continue to operate at that level. They currently do, but Farrington, what that enables us to do is just to manage the workload of all the cricket that we have in a different way, so that we can really ensure that all the players, and I'm not just talking about the professional teams here, I'm talking about all the pathway teams across the men's and women's, that they have the best facilities available for them. We're still on track. It's been a lengthy process, but we're still on track to bowl our first ball at some point during the 2025 season. I also want to make mention to the outgrounds, because although Farrington will provide an elite training facility for us, we still really value our relationships with the outgrounds, and certainly my intention would still be to support and play at the likes of Southport, Blackpool, Sedbergh and Sale, who have all been hugely supportive over the last year or two since I took over. And they're very committed to working with us to ensure everyone has a great experience during those games. Again, the chairman touched on the facilities here, and we're always looking at ways of improving that. I don't know how many of you are aware, but we have got a new state-of-the-art floor down in the indoor school, which has received some really good feedback from the players on the quality of the surface. And again, they're the sort of things we're trying to do to give our young players every chance of developing as quickly as possible. And finally, the pre-season tour as well. From my perspective, I think the value in taking both teams away on a trip like this is huge, really. It's hard to understate, and when you're actually there and you're in it, you really feel the bond between the two teams growing. The learning that operates between the environments is quite challenging during the season, given the schedules that we have, and the men and women's often work in a bit of a silo because we're so busy. But this is a fantastic opportunity for everyone to muck in together and learn off each other. We had a lot of cross-pollination across the coaches working within the teams, and that's almost carried on this season, where we've had Sophie Eccleston in with the men's team on a couple of occasions already this season. And really, I think that the pre-season tour was a precursor to all that starting. The India trip, as you can see by the image in front of you, was just a fabulous experience for all involved, really. And, I think everyone develops in a number of ways on trips like this. I was there for a few days, and the feedback we had from the women's team on that was fantastic all round. So I know there's probably plenty of other questions that you might be interested in. I'm happy to take some at the end if necessary, but we've got a lot to get through, and I'd like to pass over to Angela Hodgson, our sales director, who's going to touch on India in a little bit more detail, and I think we may have a video to set the scene.
It's incredible. You don't see any other regions doing something like this, so it's like I said, such a privileged position. There's so much excitement about women's cricket in India at the moment with the WPL going on, but yeah, it feels like a really great time to be going to places like that and being a female cricketer, and hopefully we can make the most of it.
It's amazing. I think, you wouldn't get experiences like that anywhere else, so to be able to come out here to India and do that, feel really privileged and really grateful to be able to do that. And huge thanks to the club as well for letting me and the other girls have this opportunity. I think it's been very good for both the off-field stuff and the cricket as well. So we've all really enjoyed it.
We're pretty privileged as an England team that we get to travel a lot in the winter and experience different conditions and be out in the sunshine, and so I think getting the opportunity to get out here, yeah, you can tell there's a lot of excitement in the group.
The support that Hilton's offered us by going out to Dubai and of course Mumbai as well, it's been absolutely fantastic. It's not just a cricket development opportunity, which clearly we've taken that with both hands, but also it develops the players as people. Players have really bought into the training here, but also the culture and the people of Mumbai. It's been a fantastic experience.
Okay, hi everyone. Yeah, I'm just going to give you a really brief update here on the club's India strategy, Lancs TV, which we've touched on a little bit, and a brief commercial update as well. So as the video and Andy outlined earlier, our women's team were able to go on pre-season tour to Mumbai earlier this year. And as Andy said, that was made possible by a number of the club's partners, including Hilton, Sports Breaks, BDP and CMS, who provided additional commercial funding to support women and girls cricket and giving the women the opportunity to play matches pre-season and gain huge life experiences. As a club, we'll continue to amplify Lancashire cricket in India, given their love for the cricket and the deep heritage and links that the club has with famous players across in India. As you all know, 4 India matches at the ICC Cricket World Cup in 2019 launched included India-Pakistan, which attracted a viewership of 1 billion, and 40% of our 7.83 million views on our live stream are from India. The signing of Shreyas Iyer attracted multiple commercial opportunities, and commercial discussions continue with a number of agencies in India to generate additional revenue for the club. Again, we've touched on Lancs TV and the success of that. It achieved exponential growth in 2022 and nearly 8 million live stream views across all home, non-televised domestic fixtures. Widely recognised as the best of its kind in domestic cricket, Lancs TV recently streamed the Surrey game in the County Championship, which was broadcast live on Sky Sports Cricket. Last year, the club came second in the category of YouTube Channel of the Year at the prestigious Broadcast Sports Awards, while Lancs TV remains the only UK country to stream live on Geo and Fan Code in India, which, as you know, is a focus area for the club. So touching on the commercial side of the business, we have the Ashes coming up this year. To date, we've sold over 108,000 international tickets across the IT20 and the Ashes, and over 93,000 of those for the Ashes. And for the first time ever in the club's history, general admission was sold out pre-Christmas. On the hospitality front, we've increased hospitality revenue for the Ashes from 1.8 million in 2019 to over 2.8 million this year already. This has been achieved through product development and the introduction of new packages and experiences. In terms of T20 sales, post-COVID and after a successful 2022 T20 season, we're looking to build on this success for 2023 and are looking at around 75,000 across all fixtures. To date, we're tracking much further ahead of where we were at the same point this many days out from the start of the tournament, which is great news. We have the return of Trafford Live this year and the Women in Sport event where our women's team headline. In terms of conference and events, post-pandemic, this side of the business has bounced back and we're focused on achieving over 10 million in conference and events hotel revenue this year. We're looking to increase this revenue stream further next year with the opening of the extension to the hotel, giving us 250 bedrooms to support the growth of this area of the business, which further aids the financial sustainability of the venue through the year and into the future. And on the partnership front, in 2022, for the first time in the club's history, we reached over £2 million, which includes the Emirates principal naming rights for a further 7 years. 2023, we're on track to generate 2.7 million in partnership revenue. So now we'd just like to introduce a short video just that encapsulates all sides of the commercial areas of the business. So now I'm going to introduce Angela Lowes, Chief Financial Officer, to give a financial update.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to share a slide with you that will give you an overview of the last 10 years of finances at the club. You can see, going back 10 years from the period of the report that we've just issued, back in 2012, we made an operating loss of 2.6 million and revenues sat at just under 10 million. At that time, the pavilion was nearing completion and the future was bright with the prospect of top-class conference and catering facilities ready for the future. Then we developed the Hilton Garden Inn, opened in 2017, to enhance both our match day and non-match day revenues. During that year, the revenue had gone up to 16.5 million and operating profits continued to be made, 2.3 million recorded that year. 2019, bumper year, you can see the spike there on the chart. Ashes and Cricket World Cup contributed to record revenue, just over 34 million. We recorded operating profit of 7.6 million in 2019. So following a few years impacted by COVID, we've now reported 2022 results, and we were delighted to announce revenue of 29 million, not too far away from that 2019 record figure that I just mentioned. Operating profit generated was at 3.2 million. You might have noted, if you've looked in the annual report from the cash flow, we spent 6.8 million during 2022 on fixed assets. The bulk of that is obviously related to the redevelopment of the Red Rose building. The operating profit that we generated in 22, along with the advanced sales for the Ashes this year, have already been used as the club's contribution to the development costs. Our working capital has continued to fund the development in the early part of 23. All of the club's contribution has now been made into that development, and we've started to draw down on a new Metro Bank loan facility, which will provide the end part of the funding for the development. Excuse me. So the outlook, you can see that we've just got some dotted lines there towards the end just to show what the forecasts are projecting. So you can see that we're looking for record revenues in 23, and obviously we aim for high operating profit as well to come from those record revenues. Going forward, we'll benefit from the hotel extension, as we've already said, 250 bedrooms, which will enhance the conference and events business, and that will ensure that we're generating revenue across the business 365 days of the year. The new ECB media deal will be signed shortly. This will give us the longest period of certainty of ECB revenues that we've ever had. So we'll have certainty from 2025 through to 2031 once that's signed. And finally, one point just to note, we continue to invest in our playing squad, spending around 90% of the allowable salary cap that the ECB have set in place. We spend that on our male players, current squad of 27 players, and that we continue the investment in our women's squad by funding additional contracts over and above the funding that we receive from the ECB. So money isn't just being spent on the development, it's being spent across the business, and one of the key things that the board has pushed is to ensure that we try to get towards that salary cap and stick so that we can compete with the other counties.
Angela. Thank you. I'm going to now deal with questions that have been raised on the report and accounts, and I'll invite questions on the report and accounts from members here. But first of all, we have had a number of questions that have been submitted in advance. We've responded directly to all those members already, but there's a few of those questions which we felt were particularly significant and ought to be raised, both the question and the answer that's been provided in this forum. So I'm going to go through each of those before I invite any further questions. So questions received from David Ingram. He noted that in note 14 to the accounts, it implies that the current bank debt of 24.5 million may be repayable over 20 to 25 years. Do we really have an agreement in place for such a lengthy period, or will we have to renegotiate the borrowings as is typical after around 5 years? Answer is, the existing debt has a 20-year amortisation or repayment period, has a 10-year term, at which point it will need to be renegotiated and refinanced. When does that 10-year term end? March 2029. So that's the next significant calendar point on negotiation of debt. A second question from David. It appears from note 6 that the club took out some form of hedging product to protect us against future interest rate increases. This has proven to be a very wise and sound move. How long does such interest rate protection last? What terms have been negotiated for the new £8.5 million loan? And so the club purchased an interest rate cap in 2021 when interest rates were low and the cost of the cap was relatively inexpensive. The cap covers the full loan value at that time, right the way through to March 2029. We have no interest rate hedge on the new loan because the costs of taking such a cap out these days would be prohibitive. But we keep that under regular review at board meetings. And third question from David. A significant increase in deferred income gives us advance notice that 2023 is likely to be a bumpy year financially. How much of this do you attribute to the Ashes effect and therefore not sustainable given we cannot likely expect another Ashes test for a few years? What will be the priority for this and future surpluses, e.g. debt reduction, creation of reserve fund, investment in playing squad or investment in other areas? Answer to that is that the Ashes year, as Andrew's demonstrated, have always been our strongest financially. In 2022 and 2023, those surpluses coming from Ashes revenue are contributing towards the funding of the new facilities. So the financial modelling that we make for a long-term sustainability of the club is not based upon Ashes years, it's based on normal non-Ashes years. And I think the other significant point here is that the additional hotel revenue that's been alluded to will contribute more to year-on-year sustainable revenues. And turning to a couple of questions from Alan Hyam. So he refers to player and coaching costs and asks for us to explain a little bit more where that money is spent and how the budgets are set. Are there any plans to increase this spending in the next few years, or are we going to be constrained by investment in the stadium and new ground along with servicing our debts? Well, we have a budget process that we set with the executive team and is approved by the board, and the cricket budget is set with the Director of Cricket, Mark, and the existing contracting squad being the starting point. The timing of the budget setting towards the end of the calendar year means that most player contracts are signed and agreed by that stage, so we have a firm base for that. And the budget will then include any additional players identified to enhance the current squad, for example, on short-term international contracts for specific competitions. Total cost of the squad is monitored against the annual salary cap to ensure that we're not exceeding the cap, and we must report to the ECB on an annual basis that the cap has not been breached. The cap for the current year is 2.7 million and for next year is 2.9 million. This determines the extent to which we can increase spend in this area. As Andrew's referred to, we're currently spending approximately 90% of the cap. So I think the short answer to the point about are we constrained is no, we're not constrained by internal factors, we're constrained by the cap. And final question from Alan before I throw it open to questions. Comment on the annual report. Could we publish the key financial goals for 2023, e.g. revenue and operating profit, and how 22 results compare to target set? Brief answer to that is no. We don't propose to publish budgets. We don't think we're out of line with other organisations and corporates and so on in taking that view. But the members should be comforted by the fact we have a robust process of budgeting, holding the exec and everyone else to account on budgets and monitoring against that and reporting the results to you as we are doing now. So those are the questions that were submitted in advance that we wanted to bring to your attention. I'd now like to invite questions from members here this evening on the report and accounts, recognising that questions on other matters we will deal with at the end of the meeting. So could I ask whether members have any questions, please, on the report and accounts? No, I don't think so. So in that case, I'll hand back to you, Howard.
Thank you very much. Can I therefore move the meeting on to formally receive and approve the annual report? Can I ask Les to propose the approval of those documents?
Thank you. I'd like to formally propose the adoption of the report of the board and the financial statements for the year ending 31st December 2022, together with the auditor's report on those accounts.
Nav?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Can I therefore put that substantive proposition to the meeting. Can I ask all those in favour to show their hands? And all those against, if any. Thank you. I declare that motion to have been passed. Secretary?
Yeah, just to flag up, there's quite a number of resolutions that we're going to be voting on this evening, and those from item 3B, which we're on now, right through to item 10, all require just 50%, i.e. a majority decision to be approved or not. Just to clarify, that was a unanimous decision from the floor, and it very much supports the proxy forms where we had more than 96% of the proxy forms in favour. It's also worth noting, so I don't keep repeating myself, that there were 392 proxy forms, valid proxy forms, and that's what will be kind of referred to throughout the rest of the resolutions. But otherwise, I accept that that's been passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we move on to item 4, and can I hand over to the Chair, Andy?
Yes, so item 4 formally proposes the re-election of Sir Howard as President for a final year. And I would like to propose that motion. And Rachel?
Seconded.
So can I put that proposition to the meeting, please, that the re-election of Sir Howard Bernstein is approved? All those in favour? All those against? So that motion is carried.
Again, just to refer to the proxies, over 91% of the proxies voted in favour, so it's comfortably carried.
Thank you. Can we move on to the election of the Honorary Treasurer? James?
Okay, so I'm going to propose the motion that we elect Vic Stewart as Les's replacement as our Honorary Treasurer. I'm just going to give you a little bit of explanation because it's a slightly unusual resolution. You'll note from the wording of it that Vic's appointment on this resolution is conditional on a rule change that we'll talk about later in the meeting. Vic is sat down at the front next to Mark and Bob. Give the meeting a quick wave, Vic. Thank you. So you've heard the finance report from Angela, Les's questions, and us talk about Les and his role. This is a really, really critical role in our club. We've got a really big and complicated business now. Angela's graph demonstrated the development of the business from a financial perspective. It's clearly got a lot of leisure and hospitality type aspects to it. As Les mentioned in his brief acceptance speech for his picture, don't forget the debt. We've got a big pile of bank debt that we have to manage very, very carefully. Our relationship with our bank Metro is critical. We've got bank covenants that we have to hit in terms of our financial performance to maintain the facility in the kind of place that we've got it. It's an excellent bank facility, but it needs expert management. Vic came through a rigorous recruitment process, which Sarah, the chairman of NOMCO, has detailed in the NOMCO report you will have got with the papers. Vic was the outstanding candidate that came through that. She's got fantastic skills. She's the CFO of a leisure and hospitality business that runs the Alchemist bars at the moment, so very complementary operating arrangements to us. And so I just would like to reiterate this is a really important appointment for the club. Vic is an outstanding candidate, and I would like to propose that we approve the appointment of Vic as our treasurer.
Can I ask Sarah to...
Second that.
Thank you. So can I therefore put the proposition to the meeting that the election of Vic Stewart as Honorary Treasurer for the next 3 years is approved? All those in favour? Thank you. Any against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that enough?
Thank you. That's a comfortable majority in the room, and in advance of the meeting, the proxies were again 90% supportive of the motion, so the motion is carried.
Thanks very much. Can I formally now move on to other appointments to the board. Can I propose the re-election of Sarah Tompkins be approved by members? John?
Seconded.
Can I ask for all those in favour to show their hands? Any against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you.
5, I think.
5? Wow.
Yeah, there were 4 and then 1.
5. Thank you. Secretary?
Again, comfortably carried in the room and 84% approval by the proxy forms. Overall, the motion carried.
Thank you. Can I now ask for short presentations for other members of the executive team? Michael is going to say a few things about membership, to be followed by Joanne, who's going to say something around our EDI policies as well. First, Michael.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Sir Howard. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you this evening as I come up on stage for the first time. Some 4 months into my tenure as acting ops director. I've been at the club since 2016, coming on board as the opening general manager for the Hilton Garden. I think as we go on to the first slide, I just wanted to share an update in terms of our membership numbers. I think a key piece for us all is our engagement with you. I think that's a fact that's been covered on many, many occasions. Touching on numbers here, some almost 9,000 members. So a special thank you to those members that renewed and a very warm welcome to those new members that have come on board. I think I just want to take a moment whilst we talk about the number of members that we have. I think it would be remiss of us not to acknowledge the challenges with membership packs that we've had. I think unexpected challenges when it comes to customs, orders were placed on time, on track, through companies that we've used before. So I'm sure there'll be a number of questions on that, which Angela and I are happy to take at the end. I think moving on to the next slide, we talk about engagement. Here's an indicative view of the year ahead. Shout out to Jono from a ticketing point of view with the help he's given, and Phil from a membership management, and Gaz, also the MRG. I think one point that I'd like to note is some very positive feedback from a number of members with regards to the coffee mornings, and a real key focus for us is making sure the engagement's happening out of season, not just during the season. So thank you for your support with that. One of the items that you'll have seen up on the screen shortly, Chairman's alluded to it, and as we flick on to the next slide, this is the latest CGI of the first floor space in the new building. The structure is pretty much there. It's on track, due to be opened in the summer. We look forward to getting you in there as soon as possible. In terms of bedrooms, they're on track, due online in the autumn of this year. And then as we touched on, that ground floor facility, that heritage hub, that's coming online at a later date. So thank you. We look forward to getting you in there as soon as possible. I hand over to Joanne.
Thanks, Michael. Good evening, everybody. As Chairman has already mentioned, we take EDI, equity, diversity and inclusion very important here. Working alongside the ECB and their game-wide commitment to inspiring generations, tackling discrimination and other EDI issues to ensure that the game of cricket is available for everyone. And here at Lancashire, we also take it very seriously from our own staff point of view as well, ensuring that we are a most welcoming and inclusive environment for everyone who comes to work here. As part of the initiatives, as part of our ECB County Partnership Agreement, we undertake a review, and EDI is one of those areas that that is looked into to see where we are in achieving our aspirations with regard to our game-wide commitments, and also to share the work that we are doing internally as well. This slide here shows you the different areas that are assessed as part of the EDI review. And I just want to take a couple of minutes to just sort of talk through a couple of these so you can understand what the work is that this covers. Board governance. This is around achieving a target on gender and diversity balance, of which we are on target. Crowd behaviour and welcoming venues. We've made some significant progresses with regards to these areas. Later in May, there will be a permanent multi-faith room available. That's located in the pavilion tunnel behind reception. We will have permanent changing places toilet, which is going to be next door to the indoor cricket centre, which will have baby changing facilities and an accessible toilet. A sensory room has been built and can be found in the players and media. And we will also have a dedicated family and accessible entrance at gate 15. So we've made some really good changes for this cricket season. One of the things that the ECB have worked on is having an independent review on dressing room culture. You will have seen, obviously, in the news and read in the newspapers the issues that have historically happened with regards to players in dressing room and the cultures. So they undertook an independent survey, and the results for Lancashire came back very positive. And there were a number of recommendations which are currently being reviewed for us to consider implementing. Part of our EDI initiatives within the club is around educating and raising the awareness of our staff to what equity, diversity and inclusion means. Working with the ECB, we've done some training on anti-discrimination. And also, we've done training ourselves on unconscious bias. We're always looking at new training and initiatives that we can introduce across the breadth of EDI. And our leadership are currently participating in the ECB's Inclusive Leadership Programme. And the players and staff will soon take part in the PCA Learn Before Wicket EDI education programme. Fairer recruitment. All our hiring managers have completed inclusive recruitment training, and a diverse hiring strategy is being developed to support our aims of becoming a more diverse organisation representative of our local communities. ICEC. I'm guessing that not many in the room will know what that means. I'm not asking it as a question. It's the Independent Commission for Equity in Cricket. The ECB, it's around 2.5 years ago now, commissioned the ICEC to do an independent review of discrimination and racism in cricket. That review has expanded into other areas of EDI. The club participated in that review, and the review report is due out soon. When the report does come out, it will be anonymous. No person, player, or anyone else that's sort of participated in the report will be named, nor will any county either. There's a couple of grey boxes on this document. And I'm not sure whether you can see the very small print in the bottom corner, but these were optional areas for us to provide information. At the time of their review, we didn't do that. However, we have since shared information to the ECB on these areas, all of which are on track or leading. Our talent pathway is a robust pathway and is on track. Education of players and coaches, I've just mentioned the PCA training that's due to take place. And education for recreational game. The ECB have an education initiative called Creating a Club for Everyone. And the Lancashire Cricket Foundation are rolling that out across all clubs in Lancashire. All this information has subsequently been shared with the ECB to update our review. Outside of this review, we are doing lots of different work and lots of different initiatives in place. We have an internal staff EDI engagement group, which is part of the overall club staff engagement committee. So far, this group, which is a small group of staff who volunteered to be part of this group, have run events around International Women's Day, Ramadan, Eid. Going forward, there'll be a focus on disability, specifically disability in cricket, Diwali at the end of the year, and also celebrating Pride. So the work so far has been really positive, and as Chairman said, we've just sort of like touched the surface with it, really. Recognising the importance of the work and to continue moving forward, we are currently in the process of recruiting a diversity inclusion lead, someone who will be dedicated at embedding our welcoming EDI strategy across the club and taking us to the next level of being a more diverse and inclusive club. Just before I finish, I just want to add one final point, which is nothing to do with this particular slide. It's just a very brief update on safeguarding. Again, another important issue for the club to ensure that we safeguard young children and vulnerable adults who play in cricket and who attend events and cricket here at Emirates Old Trafford. Following a robust audit with the ECB, the club is on track with regards to its requirements from a safeguarding perspective, and we have currently no live safeguarding issues. That's all I wanted to talk about. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Angela. Okay, can I move us on? As Andy, the Chair, indicated in his initial report earlier this evening, we have had a process for selecting a new director, non-executive director, who will assume responsibility for member services and member comms. And that process has been set in train, and I now invite the Secretary to explain what the outcome of that process has been.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I'm not sure which of them are in the room this evening, but could I thank Mark Montaldo, Mark Orr, and Christopher Peacock and also the other people that were involved in the process for not only putting themselves forward and showing a real interest, but taking part in what was a kind of a relatively challenging process to put themselves in the frame for this role. Now, not everybody is going to be successful. There's only one successful candidate, but we do hope that the others will stay with us, and hopefully there'll be opportunities in the past for future involvement. But as I say, there's only one successful candidate. So we had 389 votes cast in advance, and the successful candidate of the process was Christopher Peacock. So congratulations to Chris. I'm pretty certain that I did see Christopher earlier on. So if Chris is in the room, I don't know whether he'd like to make himself aware so people can say congratulations, Christopher.
Thanks very much, and can we add our congratulations as well? Can I move us now to the election of Vice Presidents? John Abrams.
Thank you, President. Can I formally propose the election of Bob Dearden as Vice President of the club?
Rachel.
Seconded.
Can I really ask for all those who in favour to show your hand? And any against? Well, I can't see any, so Secretary.
Yeah, supporting the unanimous view in the room, 89% of proxies were in favour of the motion, so it's passed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Can I formally propose David Hughes as a Vice President of the club? Navin?
Second.
Can I ask all those to vote in favour by showing their hands? Are there any against? Secretary?
Again, over 90% of the proxy votes were in favour, so motion passed.
Andy?
I would like to, as previously mentioned, propose Les Platts as a Vice President of the club.
I'm delighted to second that.
Can I ask all those in favour to show their hands? Are there any against? Secretary.
Yeah, 90% of proxy votes also supported the motion, therefore it's passed.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I now move us to the reappointment of auditors? Les?
Thank you, President, and thank you very much for that election. I'm most grateful. So I'd like to propose Hurst & Co as auditors of the club. Just a minute on that. I come from a Big Four firm background, and there were a few people who expressed a bit of surprise when I was so supportive about Hurst & Co being appointed as auditors some years ago. But my confidence in them was well placed. They've delivered well for the club. They continue to deliver well. I'm very supportive of their re-election. I'm very appreciative of the work that they've done. So thank you to Hurst for the work that they've done. So I'd like to formally propose that they are appointed as auditors of the club until the conclusion of the general meeting, which considers their report in the annual accounts of the club for the year ended 31st December 2023, in other words, in a year's time.
Rachel?
Seconded.
Can I ask all those to vote in favour by showing their hands? Are there any against? 1.
94% of the proxy forms supported the motion, therefore the motion is passed.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I move us on now to club rule changes? Before I ask James to introduce this item, I'd very much like the Secretary to explain the process around voting, which we're going to pursue on this.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the resolutions from 3 to 10 were all requiring of a majority vote, so 50% or more than 50%. Section 11 is a number of club rule changes, and club rule changes require a 2/3 majority vote. As a result of that, it's often a little bit harder to confirm whether the motion's been passed or otherwise, and particularly looking at the proxy forms, there might well be the need for a poll this evening. So the first thing I'd like you to do is it's important, because the voting is much more critical in this area, is if everybody could have their proxy forms kind of available, because we're quite keen just to make sure that everybody who is voting in these sections does have a proxy form with them. So when we vote on these next raft of sections, I would like people to put lift their proxy forms when they vote at the same time, if that's at all possible. Hopefully in a number of these cases we'll find that based on the proxies that we will be able to determine from the counts from the floor whether a motion's been passed or otherwise. However, where we believe there might be the need for a more detailed count or even a poll, then we'll make that determination at the time. The auditors are in the room, so if it comes to counting hands, then we'll do it that way. But if it turns out to be the case that we need to have a poll, then we have kind of polling boxes that are in the room that we'll put out for votes to be cast. Now, the way that's going to work is, rather than it be done after each individual resolution, we might well find that we have more than one resolution that requires a poll. So to keep things simple, to expedite the process and make sure we use best use of time, is that we will wait until the end of the resolutions in items 11 and 12, and then we'll use the proxy forms to vote on their resolutions when we all agree that a poll is required. So I'll explain that again at the end of item 12, but it's just to be bear in mind that when we go through each of them, we might well need to keep our hands up a bit longer where we do a count, or conversely agree that we need to host the poll. And there it's a matter of recording your vote on your proxy form, and it'll be the proxy form that you will use to post into one of the voting boxes to ultimately make your decision. And then what will happen then is we'll carry on the meeting, items 13 to 15, including the Q&A, whilst the auditors go away and count up the votes. So hopefully that will expedite and come up with a time-efficient process that won't keep us here too late. So hopefully that's clear enough, and I'll hand over to James.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Hopefully that's clear, but we'll guide everybody through this as we go. If we encounter any bumps in the road along the way, we'll help you through that. I've decided to stand up because we've actually got 9 resolutions to get through here, so there's quite a bit of content. I'm very conscious we've been going an hour and 15 minutes or so. However, this is really important stuff. It's important for our members, it's important for the club, it's important for the future of where we want to take things. So it's important stuff. So I'll introduce each resolution and try to explain the background to the resolutions as best I can and as briefly and concisely as I can. Bear with me a little bit if it does take a bit of explanation sometimes. I'll do it as quick as I can, I promise. Each time we'll do it one resolution at a time. So we'll introduce one resolution. I'll introduce it. We'll open up to the floor for questions and observations, and it's important that everybody who wants to say something, make their point, is able to do so. Howard will manage that for us as the chair of this section of the meeting. Then we can vote on it and move on to the next resolution. So you will have seen from the notice that we've proposed these 9 rule changes under Resolution 11. And these come out of the consultations that we ran during the course of March into early April. We had some fantastic discussions. We ran 3 consultations, different times of the day, to try and make it as accessible and inclusive as we could. We got some fantastic input. We worked for over 7 hours doing that. I wasn't in all of them, so it's a royal we. It's Lee and Daniel did all of them. Really valuable. We presented some ideas. We floated some different ideas to you just to see what the feeling would be. Some of those ideas were not well received, so we haven't bothered bringing those forward. We've been really keen to listen. We really focused on modernising the rules as the club develops. It's really important that the rules that are the backbone of the constitution of the club mirror that progress and are modern and relevant for how we need to operate now and into the future. It's also really important for strengthening the governance of the club. Really important aspect of what we do, and it's the governance side of the club is something that is important to everybody, whether it's our members, whether it's the ECB as a governing body, but it's also a responsibility that all of us on the board have firmly on our shoulders, and we're fully committed to it. But we tried to do things in a really, really balanced way. Okay, so all these proposals that we've put forward are genuinely, having listened to the consultation that many of you will have participated in, and we've put forward what we believe is the best approach for Lancashire cricket. So I think it's a really important point. It's not what Daniel thinks is what he wants to do, or it's what Andy and Howard want to do, or what I want to do, or what Lee wants to do. It's what, having listened to everybody, thought about things really carefully, we believe is in the best interests of our cricket club. We've tried to do it balanced. It doesn't mean we all agree with everything, but if we look at things through that kind of lens, what's the best thing for our cricket club? We hope that you will feel able to support the proposals that we're going to put forward. So we've got kind of 3 categories of resolution. The first resolution, 11A and 11, well, the first 2 resolutions, 11A and 11B, are actually kind of detailed in these are kind of administrative and cosmetic changes is resolution 11A, which in your AGM papers came out in this format. They are, as it says on the tin, administrative and cosmetic changes. Don't propose to go through those. I would like us to take these notes as read and take this as a package. So I don't feel I need to say anything more about that. That's the resolution that I would propose, is that we approve the rule changes that fall into this administrative and cosmetic package. So happy to open up to any questions that anybody's got on that particular package of rule changes.
Okay. Can we therefore put forward the proposals for resolution 11A?
Oh, hang on. Howard?
Yeah, I'm seconding.
We've got one gentleman there, sorry. Can we get a microphone in there, please, Peter?
Sure. Simon Atwell. I'm sorry, I'm not sure whether it's within 11A or 11B, but I read somewhere within the changes that there was a provision for the Chief Executive to be given authority to affix a seal to various documents. I don't understand why that actually is necessary. It's normally the role of the company secretary. And on a check and balance situation, I would have thought that that would be avoided, both in his interest and in others. And I would expect, if it was necessary to have a second person to do that, if the chairman wasn't available, it was actually done by the CFO rather than the chief executive. Thank you.
Lee, do you want me to take that?
Do you know what the rule is, Lee?
I didn't catch the start of the question.
So the gentleman's asking about a proposed rule change that the chief executive would have the authority to use the club seal. I don't remember that as a proposed
yeah,
rule
this
change.
is an interesting one, because the current rules have everybody under the sun, to coin a phrase, including all the vice presidents, is able to use the club seal, and it seems weird because the vice presidents aren't even board members or even non-execs, and yet there. So it was a matter of, well, we're going to have those people available. Why is the chief exec? Well, actually, the chief executive is somebody who's much more likely on a day-to-day basis to use the seal. So it's interesting. I never even crossed my mind that this would be an emotive one, because it just seems an anomaly.
On a practical point, just to give you some more reassurance. One, you don't really use company seals anymore anyway. It's a bit of an anachronism. You get two directors or exec team members to sign a document. The critical point, I would say, though, is the kind of documents, these are serious legal documents whenever you use this kind of thing. Those documents nobody can do anything with those documents at the club without the board having approved them. So if Daniel's got authority to use the company seal, he can only do that after the board has approved what he's trying to do to the seal. So I think we've got enhanced protection via Lee's mechanism, but also hopefully that practical explanation gives you some comfort there.
And just to support, in my 10 years at the club, we've never used the club seal. Effectively, as James has outlined, the board provides delegated authority for me and the CFO to enter into contracts via a signature, or board members sign on behalf of the club. So I'm not aware of us ever using the seal in the last 10 years.
I'd agree with what Daniel's saying, with one exception. There was once where we had to use it just because of a particular contracting party insisted that we did. So I dug it out of the bottom drawer. As secretary, I'm allowed to utilise the seal. But at the same time, it was only done on the basis, as everybody suggested so far, board approval. So it's a bit of a kind of a moot point in many ways these days, because we've moved on from using seals. But it's just really to tick a box in case at some point in the future an anomaly happens again.
Hopefully that covers off a decent explanation for you.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Sorry, I apologise. I never saw that hand go up. Any other questions before we embark on the voting process on the first tranche? If not, can I invite James? Can you formally?
Yeah, I've proposed it.
And I'm seconding resolution 11A. Can I ask, therefore, all those in favour of that resolution to show their hands? Are there any against? I can't see any.
I can't see any.
So
We actually had, kind of 90% approval rate on the proxies for that one. So we're comfortably ahead of the 2/3 majority, so that is passed.
Thank you.
Could I ask people to use their proxies as well when we vote on these, if possible?
Resolution 11B, James.
Okay, we can speedily move on through this one. This is the resolutions which I think we've described as in the paper here as to be voted on collectively. That again are more specific rule changes, but weren't contentious items. So again, we want to propose those as a package. So I'm going to propose that we pass that resolution, but again, open to the floor if anybody has any questions.
First of all, questions?
Gentleman here.
David Lane, I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask this question, and my apologies if it isn't, but one of the proposed rule changes that the board did consult on was to require 95% of members to vote in favour before sale of the club or significant club assets. And I understand that this was generally supported at the consultation meetings. However, this proposed rule change hasn't been put forward to the AGM, and I just wondered why it wasn't included, and what is the current position under the rules if an offer to purchase the club or significant club assets was received.
Okay, so that is one example of a variety of different ideas that we presented to members at different consultation sessions, just to test if there was an appetite for a look at defining more clearly what big decisions members felt should be specifically included in the rules as something that the members would decide on. The feedback across the whole piece of decision-making things was that members didn't feel there was any need for that. So if you drew a parallel with companies, for example, companies are very clear there's certain things that shareholders have got to vote on, and it's typically either 75% resolution or a 50% resolution. We floated some of that around with members, and we got pretty clear feedback that decision-making wasn't something that people felt could be something that was used. There was individual ones, maybe such as the example you refer to, that people go, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But across the piece and a package of decision-making things, people didn't feel that it was something that we should push forward with. So we listened and didn't push forward with it. In terms of what the rules say about that precise scenario, the rules say precisely nothing about that scenario, which is one of the reasons why, as it says nothing about loads of other potential scenarios, which is one of the reasons why we tested the water. Did members think that the rules should start to talk about that kind of thing? It says nothing. This is a personal view from me. We haven't discussed it as a group. I suspect if ever that came along, the rules would have to be changed. Nobody would buy the club or make a big investment into it, I don't think, without changing the rules and wanting votes. So, for example, there's a rule that I think says you can't be a corporate member, you've got to be an individual. So if there's a company wanting to buy Lancashire or a company to invest in Lancashire, you'd have to change those rules. So my kind of amateur view on it at the moment, without having discussed it with anybody really, is you'd fall back on it's a 66% majority, because that's what you need to change the rules. So I suspect that's probably an indirect, the best answer we've got to that question right now. Okay. Does anybody have any more questions? Alan?
Thank you. I went to 2 of the 3 rules consultation meetings, and the rule that's just been alluded to by the other member was floated in the first one of the 2. I went. It wasn't mentioned at all in the last one, and to be honest, it had gone on for 3 hours, so I didn't sort of say anything at the time. So I don't know what was said at the second that I wasn't there at, but I didn't hear anybody objecting to having some sort of protection that the members would have a vote before any of the club's assets were sold. So I may have misunderstood you, James. Would you just clarify what you meant by that?
Yeah, we came up with a variety of different ones. So I was at the second one, Alan, and we talked about different different decisions. There's loads of different kind of big decisions that some of us had bounced around some ideas and thought we'd just test the water with it. That's one that is maybe a pretty obvious one, and people said, oh, I like that one. But you can't, if we're going to do something like that, you've got to have a full set. You can't just say, oh, that's a good idea, and we're not going to bother with any of the other ideas. So we got a pretty clear steer in other discussions that there wasn't an appetite to get into detail on decision making. That's what we heard.
Okay, any other questions? James, can I?
Okay, so I'm proposing that suite of rule changes just be put forward as Resolution 11B.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Can I therefore ask all those in favour of the resolution, please show your hand with your papers up. Thank you. Are there any against? Right. Can we count those, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
15,
10, 11, 12. Is the gentleman, have you got a proxy form? I think we're asking for people to there's one gentleman who's not shown his proxy form. Thank you, sir. Right, can we just do count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 16, 13, 14, 15, 16. I get 16.
16.
Yeah, I get 16. I don't know if, yes. Secretary?
Yeah, well, if it's 16, that's if you're looking around the room, we've about 100 people in here. So we're definitely above the two-thirds majority. And the proxies were 87% in favour out of 400. So putting all that together,
yes,
I could conclude that we've definitely two-thirds of the majority covered.
Thank you.
Hang on, could you just wait for the microphone, please, sir?
Small point of order, but if we are counting votes, then I think saying approximately 100 people doesn't actually cut the mustard.
94, actually, to be precise.
Yeah, I think on this case, when we get down to where it's clearly a lot tighter, we will do a full count. But there, it was compellingly two-thirds majority in the room to go with a 80 to 90% majority.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. I agree with that. Thank you, sir.
And just to reassure everybody, we've got our auditors patrolling the floor to cover this off. So we've got our third-party independent scrutiny, and we'll keep working away as we go through these resolutions to get it right.
Thank you.
Okay.
James, can you move on to 11C to F?
Yeah, so we've got a few to get through now. We start off with a series of resolutions that are linked to special general meetings and the rules around special general meetings. So it's clearly an element of learning from last summer, what happened with the convening of the SGM last summer, and some specific things that, again, we consulted with people on. We tweaked the proposals and are bringing these to you as something that we feel very strongly are in the best interests of Lancashire cricket. So again, that's the lens through which we're looking when we're making these proposals, and we're looking at balance and doing the right thing, not the right thing for me, Sarah or Navin, the right thing for Lancashire cricket. So the first change is all around how many members need to be signed up to requisition, call for a special general meeting. So the existing rule says that 100 members are required to call for an SGM. The proposal is that we change that number to 250 members. So for those of you who were at the consultations, You will recall that we did an element of benchmarking around other counties that we think are reasonably comparable with Lancashire. And the findings were that at the upper end of that number was 400, not uncommon for counties to have 400. And at the lower end, it was probably 250, and we were an outlier at only 100. Why are we doing this? We're doing it because we think it makes good sense. And it makes good sense for the club as a whole and for members as a whole. I can understand that if I'm a member who wants to call an SGM on a particular issue, I might want that number to be lower because it's easier for me and my colleagues who share a particular view to get the number to demand an SGM. You might not always be in that position, and you might not be somebody in that group, and it could be a different interest group that is then demanding an SGM, which the club is obliged to hold. So it's a question of balance. We originally proposed 400. We listened to everybody, and certainly the consultations I was in, 250 was concluded as a reasonable, sensible middle ground. I would also remind members of the really, really significant cost of holding an SGM. You'll be aware there's a further proposal that we want to put into our rules that we will hold 4 members' forums a year. That's a later resolution. That's how we think we can deal with lots of the topics that people want to talk about today, but dynamically deal with business in a much cheaper, cost-effective and quicker manner. So this SGM change is about that context. We spent £39,000 on the SGM last year, plus all the management time and everything else that went with it, which I suspect you probably double the cost of that. It's not a great way of doing business, and we certainly believe that SGM should be a last resort, and it should be something that needs a higher hurdle than what we currently have. So the resolution is that we change the 100 to 250 as per the notice, which I'm going to propose, but opening up to questions or observations from our members.
The whole issue that I can see behind it is, well, there's 2 issues. First of all, I believe the last SGM before last year was about 50 odd years ago. So they don't come across very often. But the other thing was that perhaps if the communications out of the board or the committee had been a little bit swifter, it might never have happened. Now, the reason I'm opposed for the change is that during the season, it's very easy to get 250 members because you wander around the ground with a clipboard. But if something happened out of season, which there is no safeguard, because trying to get more than 100 members out of season to address something that's a major issue of concern, because the board is doing something that I'm not saying you would, but a board in the future, and that's what we think about, is these rule changes affect the future today and not the present members. So if we had an out-of-control board in the future, they could do anything they want out of season because you wouldn't be able to get the things. So that is one of the big dangers of this increase. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point and one we've thought about. I mean, just to help, I think when the rules were drafted at 100, we didn't really have viable digital means of convening these things. So there are many things still to consider on the agenda, of which there are 9 items that a group of 80 members in January petitioned us about electronically. So there are many Facebook groups and whatever else other channels people choose to use where they are now grouping people together digitally, which is a heck of a lot easier than walking around here with a petition. So we think digital probably helps get the right groundswell. The other one is a percentage thing. 100, using 8, just let me finish and then we'll come back. Using 8,000 members, so I've knocked off the taster members from the stats that Michael put on the screen. 100 is 1.25% of the membership. So do we think that 1.25% of the members is a high enough groundswell of opinion to force the club into the formality of an SGM. 250 is 3%, just over 3%. Companies, by the way, is 5%. So if you're a shareholder in a public company, you need, or any other company, you need 5% of the shareholders. So we're well below that, and we think we're striking a reasonable balance.
I think perhaps that the Constitution, or the rules, whatever you want to call it, don't actually allow for the electronic age. So perhaps it should have been changed to incorporate at the same time that you would be, that the club would accept electronic calls, whereas at the moment it doesn't say that. So you couldn't call one using electronic
Since the resolutions we've just passed, we're fully digital. We have now entered the digital age, thankfully. So when Lee registers the new rules with the FCA, those new rules take effect. So what you've just voted on gives us a real good suite of digital capability to hold these things in digital. And the members who put forward the 80, who put forward the items that we're considering today on the agenda, we accepted their electronic petition.
Okay. Any further questions on this rule change? Yes, gentleman over here.
Is this working? Yeah. Just on your last point,
it's not working, is
it? Is that better now? Okay. I just wanted clarification because you said we're now fully in the digital age. Am I correct that for this specific AGM, you're not allowed to vote? If you're watching it on Zoom, you can do so, but you can't vote. Correct. So the assurance that you said we're now fully digital, I need some clarification of that, because if we're fully digital but you're not able to vote, then we're still in the same position. So can you perhaps clarify my understanding?
Yeah. Okay. You're quite right. You can't vote via Zoom at the moment. As I just said, when Lee registers the new rules with the FCA, the rules don't take effect until they get registered with the Financial Conduct Authority. So once we finish this meeting, Lee will finalise the rules that get registered with the FCA. That's when they're live. So that's when the changes that we've incorporated live come into being. That gives us the ability to have digital voting, or voting via some kind of you don't need to be here type methodology. We will look into doing that. That is expensive technology. We understand one county is trialling something along those lines. You will be, if you think about it, aware that you've got to have a lot of scrutiny on people voting. If it's not physically here with a physical proxy form and that kind of thing, it's potentially very widely open to fraud and abuse. I'm not saying our members would do that, but we've got to have the right level of governance and control on everything. So we will look to be doing that, because we want more than just the people in this room voting and participating in all of these issues within the club. So you're spot on to highlight it as an issue, and it's something we'll be looking to do when we can, once the technology is right and once the technology is affordable. Is that okay?
Thank you. I think there's also another gentleman.
Yeah. This chap here in the place.
Thank you.
I understand the rationale for the increase from 100 to 250, but I would suggest a pause on this. Firstly, I would mention that as regards other county clubs, then Nottinghamshire, who did have an SGM last year, their number required for an SGM was 100 and stays at 100. They have over 5,000 members. Appreciate not quite as many as Lancashire. Special general meetings are costly, both money and management time. The best way to avoid them is to have the club well managed. Don't need them then. And I would suggest that maybe some further thought is needed as regards member services, and perhaps next year when there is a video about the experience at Old Trafford, that you include member experiences as well as the commercial partners' experiences. I think there's more to do on member services, and I think also we need a board culture that is positive for member engagement. And there are many positive things about that, such as the commitment to 4 members' forums a year, but not everything in the agenda is positive for member engagement, I think. And again, I worry that one of the things that was proposed and consulted on was the suggestion that members would not be allowed to put forward resolutions at the AGM on certain matters, which I thought was really totally wrong, and it was put forward as being a tidying up exercise. So I thought that has been dropped, which I'm very happy about, but I just worry that we haven't fully got a culture that promotes member engagement and involvement, and I would wait a little time, try next year and see whether we've improved the way that the club is managed, and I appreciate there are many positive things on that, and then maybe come back to us. But I would suggest pause for the moment on this.
Okay, thanks for your feedback.
Hello, Paul Kerr. Excuse me, Paul Kerr, Life member. Following on from what the gentleman said before, it's very easy to get 100 signatures or 250 signatures during the season. If somebody wanted to call an SGM out of season, would the club give me as an individual the names and addresses of other members that I could contact?
I suspect, I get your logic. I suspect we've got all sorts of data protection rules around sharing personal data that probably gets in the way of that, unfortunately. Okay, have we got any more questions? Alan?
Okay. Any more questions? One here. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to return to the theme I tried to engage on when we were discussing matters arising from the general meeting, because I was hoping to make this as easy as possible. The club made a promise to improve engagement, and it does appear that what you've decided to do is to make it harder to call a general meeting. And I very much echo what other people have said. I doubt this will ever happen again, unexpected things excepting. But I think it would be a good politics, a good member relations to, as Chris has said, just to part this, because I don't actually disagree with what you say in your logic, James, about 250 versus 100 and how it compares with other counties. And quite frankly, if you actually want to carry the vote on a special general meeting, you're going to need an awful lot more than 250 signatures to start off with anyway. So I don't want to get too bound up in the detail of these individual rules. But what I would ask everybody at the top table who's on the board to think about is the signal and the messaging that goes back to members associated with it. It's not as if it's being accompanied by anything obvious that you're proposing to improve member experiences and communications. And I think that's the bits that's missing that would otherwise get a lot of members to support you.
Okay, fair comment. I mean, all I would flag to you, Alan, is our commitment to listen to this feedback. We consulted widely on these rules. We didn't get the feedback that has just been provided in the consultations on this issue. We didn't receive the feedback that you've just shared. So that wasn't there for us. We really want to get these 4 member forums embedded, baked into the rules, so we all know where we are. The kind of presentations that you've been listening to tonight from the management team, they're exactly what should be being presented to our members at member forums. And members should be able to raise whatever issues they want to ask questions about. We get loads of detailed questions ahead of the AGM that actually isn't really kind of strategic AGM type stuff. It shows that members want to know a bit more about the business, but it's stuff that we should be talking about away from AGMs and SGMs and all that kind of thing. But I go back to what I think Howard and Andy have both said. We're committed to using the first member forum that comes along this year to start a conversation with you around potentially a second elected member coming onto the board. There's probably going to be questions around it. The MRG is something we've talked about getting elected members to the MRG that people can vote on freely and select from a choice of members. So I think hands up, I'm sure we haven't got a lot of things right. And the SGM last year, I don't think was anybody's finest hour, wasn't the club's finest hour for sure. But we have to start somewhere, and we have to have to try to convince people that we should draw a line on some of the stuff that's gone on before. We hope we're starting to make the right kind of progress with some of the stuff I've just highlighted to you. We ran the 7-hour consultations. That felt like a good start. We've scrapped some things that we heard loud and clear people weren't interested in. We just haven't brought it forward because you told us, so we listened. So I think we hear what you say. We want to grow our membership. How are we going to grow our membership? By being the kind of place where members are included, listened to, feel involved, feel respected, don't feel marginalised, all that stuff. You know, Joanne's talking about inclusivity. That's everybody. It's all the parts of society that Joanne was talking about, but it's our members as well. You know, you're the closest people to the club. So we've got to start somewhere. We think this is a balanced proposal, so we think it's the right thing to do. We think SGMs are an absolute last resort, and I hope we don't talk about SGMs ever again. And I'd like to put it to bed. So I would like to put the proposal to a meeting, but I hand back to Howard.
What do you want to do, Andy?
So I think as part of our learning and moving forward, let's listen to your feedback today and we'll scrap the resolution. We don't need to vote on it. The rule will stay as it is at 100. And perhaps as we develop a better relationship and people feel less like we're trying to close in on people's ability to influence things, maybe we can get to that kind of level which still feels a sensible level at a different point in time. Okay?
Thank you.
Let me just confer with Howard and Andy. Should we do the same with the others?
11D.
Okay, let's ditch the others as well while we're at it, and take some angst out of things and a bit of work off everybody's shoulders. So I think Resolution C, which is what we've just been talking about, we'll pull. Resolution D, which is the kind of repeat resolution, abusive process type resolution, we'll pull. The time period is just a practical thing that, given experience last year, which was a bit of a nightmare dealing with things as quickly as the rules provided, we'll pull also. So C, D and E crossed out off the agenda and we can move on. So I hope, listen to your advice there, sir, and see where we go to. So the next resolution, I'm hoping might be slightly easier to deal with, is holding 4 members' forums each year. So to get that, as I said earlier, baked into the rules, that is something that the club must do. It's not, shall we hold a members' forum or shan't we hold a members' forum? We will hold 4 member forums each year, with the idea that we'll get an open agenda on it. Lots of the kind of things that you want to hear about, your comments, questions, etc., can be dealt with there. So does anybody, I haven't got anything more to say on that. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask or points to make about that particular resolution? Gentleman here, Peter.
This is only a question about procedure and a possible point of order, so I might be highlighting my ignorance here. But of the things that you've just pulled, are you actually allowed to? Because if people have voted by proxy and they happen to be for the motion, are you still allowed to pull them? But it's just a point of order question. I don't know what the procedure is, so I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I just want clarification on what's the correct thing to do.
It's a good question. I think it is at the discretion of the meeting that we can do that.
Lee, have you got any advice for us? On on the fact that we've had proxy votes?
Yeah.
Well, for two of those resolutions, the proxies we hadn't hit the target, so we were below the threshold of 2/3, and one of them it was very, very close and tight. So I think the general view from the room that we've taken there and the feel for it would have, I think we've drawn the conclusion that it's so borderline or erring on being against that it makes sense to go away and revisit it again. And if we think it's right and appropriate at some point in the future, we'll come back again then.
And I suppose I would say I'm not detecting a groundswell of views in the room that we must vote on this resolution to try and get it through would be my other sense.
James, I think the phrase would be we're pausing those.
Okay. Howard says we're pausing those resolutions, so we can bring them back on the agenda if and when appropriate in the future. Okay. So, any more questions about the proposal to have 4 member forums each year?
Can I just say this is a very welcome progression, and I would hope to appeal to all the members to actually make sure they come to as many of these as possible and to engage with them. And if there's anything that can be done to help with the communications or improve engagement, I'd be perfectly happy to volunteer my time to help.
Thank you, Alan. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Andy?
Okay. Howard, I'm proposing the resolution on the 4 member forums each year.
Andy?
I'm seconding that one.
Can I ask all those in favour to show their hands?
Where am I now?
Are there any against? I can't see any, can you? No? Very good, thank you.
Now, just to support that, well over 90% of the proxy votes supported the motion too.
Thank you. 11G.
Okay, 11G is the resolution that I referred to earlier when I proposed the vote on Vic, to appoint Vic as Honorary Treasurer. And it's a resolution that is really important. If we don't pass this resolution, Vic won't be able to become the Treasurer of the club, which you heard me say before, we feel is a really, really important appointment. So what the resolution is doing is, at the moment the rules state that to become President or Treasurer you need to have been a member for at least 3 years, and there's also no requirement for those people to go through nominations committee. There's a slight exception, and the rules are slightly different actually between the President and the Treasurer. There's a small exception with the President appointment, which talks about exceptional circumstances, but exceptional circumstances is a very high bar. So the proposal that we want to put to the meeting today is that we remove this requirement that to become Treasurer or President you have been a member for 3 years, and that the appointments follow the procedure that we've got for all the other board appointments via nominations committee. The purpose of the nominations committee being to ensure that the criteria that are set by the board, which are all based on the needs of the club, are met, and that we get the best possible people coming through for those roles. So taking each kind of limb separately, the President is a bit quicker. One of the things that the current rule would do is it would preclude perhaps a well-known former player from becoming President. We'd often that kind of person has been President in the past. More often than not, when you find out about these people, they're actually not members of the club. So, as you've heard, Howard has been re-elected for one last year. Howard's timed out after that. So we need to think about a new president, and we feel that we might have to go wider than the current membership of the club to get the right person. So that's the president. In relation to the treasurer, this is one where we're asking the members to approve this resolution, really because the appointment of Vic is in the best interests of the club. We ran a rigorous recruitment process for our new treasurer. We received 17 applications for that, 3 came from members. Okay, so if this rule remained in place, only 3 of those people could even have possibly been appointed as treasurer. 2 people it was felt didn't have the skill sets required to meet the criteria for what we need for this really, really critical role within the club. And the third did. The third was interviewed, but just wasn't going to fulfil the criteria that we needed from that particular skill set. Vic came through the other 14, the non-members who applied. 4 people were shortlisted, and Vic was the standout candidate amongst that group. There's a lot of good governance about this. It's really important the nominations committee is involved in this. It's important from our ECB CPA obligations that we have this level of scrutiny on these really important appointments. I suppose finally what I would say is 90% plus of the members voted to approve Vic's election as treasurer. This resolution, if we don't pass it, is going against that approval of Vic as treasurer. So we've run a rigorous recruitment process. We're convinced that Vic's involvement with us moving forward to step into Les's shoes as he steps down is really critical for us as we move forward with our complex business, our significant financial obligations, our complex arrangements with Metro Bank. And so that's why we really, really need your support, please, to pass this resolution. So I want to propose that, but open to questions. Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you. You mentioned the county partnership agreement in what you were saying and the ECB. I attended the third of the 3 consultation meetings where again it was mentioned, and my question was, how are we expecting members to approve a change of rules on the basis of a document, the CPA, which we have not seen? And my recollection is that the club was going to circulate the governance framework from the CPA, but we have not received it. And indeed, I would be very surprised if that CPA governance framework on its own required this specific change. It sounds to me that it is a framework and that the real objective is to ensure that the county clubs are well managed and that it does not actually underpin this particular rule change. And as I say, we've not had the ECB document which might enable us to be more informed about this proposition.
Okay. The CPA is not a public document. It's a contract between each county and the ECB, so I think it would be unusual to share that with our members, and here's a copy, everybody. Lee, Daniel, I don't know if you've got any specifics on that point.
No, the gentleman's right. I don't think we ever committed to sending out the CPA because we wouldn't have the ability to do that, but we can share some key elements of ECB requirements. I think the most important element here, to answer the gentleman's specific question, is there is a very clear compliance requirement within the CPA on the ECB, which I can openly share in this meeting, in that all board appointments have to go through a nominations committee. That currently is not the case with the treasurer and president. So if we appoint a treasurer or president without going through a nominations committee, we do breach the ECB compliance on the CPA. The second element is we have very, very clear compliance arrangements on diversity representation and gender representation that we have to manage. Those, if you ask me about the 2 key ones that are relevant to this rule, those are the 2 key elements that are relevant to this rule.
Yep, Dave.
Can I just jump in as well? This is not so much about the general recruitment to the board. This is as much about these roles and the treasurer role in particular. And I think I've had this discussion with other members that it's strange being on the board of Lancashire Cricket Club because we're a cricket club, but we're also a very complicated business. And the place where that manifests itself the most is in the area of finance. And where we need the greatest expertise to navigate the future, and to make sure we pay the debt down, etc. And all the things I've been saying about the help that Les has given us, it's in this area of the treasurer, and it's absolutely vital that we are free and unencumbered to pick the best treasurer who's worked in an environment where you've got a hospitality business, you've got debt, you've got all these issues to manage through. That's what's important here for me. So, yes, we've got these frameworks and we've got ECB regulations about what we have to do around the board. That's fine. But this is as much about the role of the treasurer and saying we need the best possible candidate. We've got a very complicated 10 years ahead of us as a business, and we want to navigate it in the best possible way, and we believe we've found the best possible candidate. I think I also said earlier, and this is important to go hand in hand, the process that we've just gone through to elect a member representative, for me, has been a very good and successful process, and I think in Christopher we've found a brilliant candidate. We can do that with other roles on the board. I'm very keen that we consult around that. And that's the way to make sure the members, I believe, feel that they've got input and say onto this. This role of treasurer for me is absolutely vital that we get the best person. I don't want to undermine that in any way. So I hope you see we're not trying to go against the members and the member participation, but I also believe the sustainability of the club is the most important thing, and this role is an absolute vital cog in ensuring that sustainability of Lancashire.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you. I'm concerned about this. Jeffrey Schindler, I'm concerned about this resolution because it seems to me that someone who has had no connection with the Lancashire County Cricket Club or cricket in general can be brought in as president or honorary treasurer without any relationship with the club until this happens. I take the chairman's point that it's a crucial role, the treasurer. It always has been, and it becomes even more crucial as we go into the next 10 years. But it's important, I think, that we remember we're a members' club. And I find it surprising that we can't find someone of, say, Les's ability amongst the membership to represent us as the treasurer. I just feel that bringing someone in from outside who has had no connection with the club at all, which is a possibility as the rule goes, is not the right way forward. I understand the nominations committee role in this, and indeed when I was on the board I actually invented the nominations committee, so I know how important that is. So that I don't think overcomes totally my concerns about a total outsider coming in to an very important position. I don't deny what the chairman has said, but I don't feel comfortable with it. And the other point that I've got, which is to do with all the resolutions, but I'll raise it now, which is I don't know what a member is of this club, because we had a slide fairly early on that had a whole category of people who seemed to be members. Do they all have votes? I mean, who is a real member of this club as opposed to who is something else? You may not want to deal with that now, James, but to my mind, we have to define what we mean by a member of this club.
So that the next resolution actually is linked to that, and there's a bit of a discussion point to come. So maybe your second point, Jeff, if we can pick up as we go through. First point, you say you find it hard to believe we can't find somebody with the requisite skills in the club. We've tried. The recruitment campaign tried that, and we didn't. So we have tried that, hard as it might be for you to believe, but we did. We think we found a candidate that is the best person to do this for Lancashire cricket, and that's what we're trying to do.
Just a couple of points. There'll be short ones, James, so I'll just do them one by one. The member that you did think had suitable skills and you interviewed, but you preferred Vic, is that member still willing to act?
Sarah, do you know?
Alan, we can't talk about individual members and individual votes. That's not appropriate in this forum. I'm sorry, but we went through a thorough interview process, as I do for many, many jobs in many careers, and we picked someone who had the suitable skills out of a long list. I'm not trying to be awkward, but we can't just go back to someone who failed the interview process, who wasn't suitable, whoever they are. That's just inappropriate question, I think.
Okay, I must have misunderstood. I thought you considered the people...
No, we shortlisted someone who we thought might be appropriate.
Yes.
And we were keen to if there was a member with the skill, we were keen to see this person. So that person met with NOMCO, but it was inappropriate for them to go further.
Well, all I was trying to deal with was the possibility that there's going to be a vote on this. There's been proxies already voted, so we don't know whether the 2/3 or 1/3 is going to pass or not. But we do need a treasurer. And if we don't pass this rule change as a body of club members, then the person that the nominations committee has identified, as you've said, can't then take up the role. So the question of who would then do it, given that Les is presumably timed out, I don't think Les can do another year, even if he was willing to do it. I think it's very germane, and I would ask you to just reflect on that and just tell us what you say what would actually happen if we didn't pass this rule amendment. I think we all ought to know the consequences before we vote.
You have to recruit.
I think that the consequences are we've not got a treasurer. We need a treasurer. It's a really important role, and we're back to square one, aren't we? I don't think it's any more complicated than that. Les?
Yeah, I think the answer, Alan, is we will be without a treasurer. And it's not a position that I would obviously recommend that we adopt, but clearly it could be a result of this, because I cannot serve any longer without a change in the club rules to allow me to serve longer. And we haven't got a proposal to change the club rules, so I can't serve any longer. That's a fact. And if Vic is not appointed by virtue of this rule change being rejected, then that would mean we will be without a treasurer, is the answer to that question. I'd just like to make one other point to you. I mean, I've been in this job for 10 years now. I know what's involved in it. I did not directly involve myself in the process because I said to the rest of the board, you've got to decide who you think is the right person to be selected. So I trusted the nomination committee process. But they nevertheless wanted to consult me when it came to the final 4 candidates, all of which were credible candidates, none of which were members, because they wanted my view. And my view was that Vic was the outstanding candidate, and we need that skill in this boardroom. So this is a dangerous moment. If we do not propose this accept this rule change, we will be without a treasurer. And what we're proposing to do allows us to have a very good treasurer. I strongly recommend that members support this rule change.
Thank you. That's exactly the clarity I was hoping to get. So I think the challenge that concerns the members with this rule change is in essence, the overall representation for members across the piece, which the next item also addresses. I think the chairman has signalled where the board wishes to go on the next piece already in what he's said, because what I just want to say to the meeting is these are the only 2 roles in the club rules that are, if you like, a reserve for members. Otherwise, anybody could be brought in from the outside and be deemed to be better than any member that have put themselves forward. So I think for me and for many other people who've asked me to vote as a proxy on their behalf, what we were really looking for was a firm commitment from the board that 2 members would be on there. I think that's what you've given. I just want to be absolutely sure I've not misunderstood. And if that's the case, I'm not going to stand on the ceremony and say it has to be the president or the treasurer.
We're really happy to go down that path and work it out with the membership. I think I've said to you before, I'm on 2 boards that are member organisations, and in both cases there is significant member representation. I don't want the group here to get the feeling that's anything we oppose. I'm very used to that, and I'm very supportive of that, and I am very keen. This role is a role I feel very strongly we as a club need protection, and this role gives us protection if we get the best possible candidate, and I'm absolutely convinced that Vic is that candidate. But we are more than happy to go down the avenue just discussed. I discussed this with you previously. I have no objections. We've discussed it as a board earlier today. We have no objections to going down that path, and we'd like to consult to figure out. The one thing that adds complication, and I'm not trying to stop it, is the diversity requirements of the ECB, and they're in the memo. That we can send you those paragraphs. We need to make sure we've got a diverse board, and how we get to that is an important part of any election. We need to keep the numbers that we target on behalf of the ECB. We need to keep at the right level. But as long as we can work within that framework, I have no issues. And I think what was great about the process we've just gone through is it threw up some brilliant candidates. So very happy to go down that path, Alan.
Okay, do you want to put this to the vote?
Okay, so I want to propose this as a resolution that is passed in the best interest of Lancashire cricket, and you've heard from several of my colleagues how important this is, and we're asking for your support to pass this important resolution so Vic can take office.
Second that motion.
Right, can I all ask for votes in favour, please, to be shown?
Well, I think this is important that we do actually do a kind of a proper count of these votes. So could a help from the auditors would be great, please. Stage.
Is anyone? Can I just ask? Is anyone holding multiple proxies? Just to make.
Yeah, the only person with multiple proxies is Alan. Alan's is holding around 15 proxies. So, is that Alan? You supporting all with all 15? Right. Well, we'll see whether it's necessary at the end of. Okay. Thank you. Okay. It's probably.
Are you happy with that, auditors?
Lee, oh no, you're John.
No, it's still counting. It's still counting.
It looks like there's plenty. Let's put everybody put those down. Can we have those? Do it the other way. Voting against, because that might be easy. Who votes against the motion?
Alan, how many votes have you got against? Okay.
7 out of 9.
Well, there's not many against, so. I think the proxies were in.
No, there's 15 in total. It's just split in between for and against, I think.
Yeah. So how many do we have against?
7.
7.
7 plus what Alan has. So if Alan has
22.
15 in total, so that's a maximum of 22.
21, sorry.
21, sorry. Then, did we have a total for the fours?
Auditors?
Two accountants trying to come to the same number. This is promising.
Seven.
27.
Right. So, okay, that's I think that's 77 for 21 again. So that is definitely a 2/3 majority, and the proxy votes were 68% in favour, which is also a 2/3 majority. So when we add the two together, even my last gives us a 2/3 majority. So if everybody's in agreement, then the motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that. And congratulations, Vic. Poor old Vic has been sat at the front. So, Vic, well done. I'm really sorry we had to do that, but it's for good reasons. And for a voluntary role, hasn't Vic had to work seriously hard to get on board? So I think we better be worth it for you.
Yeah, and just a reminder, you did get 90% approval rate earlier on, which is the important one.
Yeah, but thank you everybody for a proper debate, listening to and taking on board each other's views, which I hope is part of the spirit on which we are all going to move forward together and get to a better place. Right, I've got two more left, I think. The next one, kind of linked to Geoffrey's second point, actually. This is a resolution to amend the rules that currently state that all members are entitled to a vote. Now, the membership categories that we have don't all carry in their contractual terms and conditions a right to vote. So Geoffrey asked earlier, what is a member, and then said who exactly is entitled to vote. So when Michael put up his different categories of membership, this is all very clear on the club's website and is all very clear in the terms and conditions that are provided when people become members of the club. That the category of member that we call a taster menu, that's what you have in a restaurant, isn't it? I'm hungry.
We're all hungry.
I am losing the plot, sorry. A taster member is not entitled to vote. So all we're trying to do with the rules is to just clarify the rule that in effect that all members of the club are entitled to vote except as stated otherwise in terms and conditions applicable to a membership category. That isn't the exact wording, I've just paraphrased it. So it's to provide additional clarity, but also to give us, as we grow our membership and as people's tastes and preferences develop over time, as we get more diverse members with different cricket preferences, different time availability to come to games, we can have the right kind of membership categories that get us members, people connected to the club, bought into the club, who want to come and watch cricket of all shapes, sizes, descriptions that we put on as here and at our other venues. We just want that clarification in the rules. So it's a technical rule change to explain that all members have voting rights unless the terms and conditions of your membership category state otherwise. So that's what this rule change is about. And we've marketed this taster membership with those T's and C's. So they don't have a right to vote. We're just trying to get the rules to properly dovetail with the T's and C's applicable to that kind of membership category. So I hope that's clear, quite straightforward, I think. Happy to take any questions.
No.
Okay, I think we're okay. So I'd like to propose that resolution to the members.
Yeah, seconded.
Okay, all those in favour of that resolution can please show their hands. Thank you. Are there any votes against? Just one.
Two, I think.
One, two. Thank you.
That's fairly unanimous in the room. Couple against. We had 84% approval rate on the proxies, so motion is passed. Thank you.
Okay,
James.
Last one from me. You'll be glad to hear. So this is a rule change that is relevant to the rule that we have that states that the club cannot increase membership prices by more than 10% a year. So what we are asking members to approve is to have a caveat to that rule, which is except in demonstrably exceptional circumstances, or where there are enhanced benefits that come with a package of membership. So I'll give you an example of that. We have a category of membership, I think it's the 1864 membership, where we've bundled some food into the membership. So the fee for that, I think, has gone up more than 10% this year, but that is all directly related to the benefits that those members are receiving. So it is simply to give us some flexibility as we continue to build the membership, and different benefits become relevant to different membership categories, that we have some flexibility to price those accordingly, which might trip us over the 10%, but also where we can address exceptional circumstances. I suspect this rule was probably put in place when none of us thought we'd be sat in 2023 with 10% inflation running, for example. So I don't think it needs any more explanation from me, but again, happy to take any questions that anybody might have.
The one concern that I would actually have is that there's a danger that it could be abused, because if we take our neighbours across the road at the other Old Trafford, they suddenly increase their annual fee by including the League Cup, where you all had to buy your tickets for the League Cup included in your annual season ticket. And the danger that I can see is where members who have no interest whatsoever in the 100th, suddenly get told that they have to pay 20% more because they're getting free 100 tickets. And that's the danger with it. Suddenly packages come along which people don't want, which inflate the price, and also falsely sell tickets when there's no support for a particular competition. That's all I wanted to make point of.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I guess we're determined to grow membership, so we want to sell these things. I think, we've had many years of flatlining membership at about 5,000, and we've had lots of conversations, this group and others, around, come on, Lancashire, just get that membership back up again where it used to be. We've got the bit between the teeth on that, and we've proved that by looking at membership a bit differently, with the kind of packages that Ange and Liz and the team have come up with, we've sold them fantastically well. You saw Michael's statistics, 8,900, 8,200 if you take off the taster membership. So we want to sell these things. We're not in the game of trying to get to a price point that discourages growth in membership. So I think we're pretty safe on kind of prohibitive pricing going on for the sake of it. And we're only talking about exceptional circumstances and demonstrably enhanced benefits. I think it's pretty defined. Gentleman
Other question here.
Phil, have you got the mic for down here? Pete, you're quicker than Phil, obviously. A bit slow off the blocks there, Phil. Stay with it.
My question is, sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah, sorry about that. I struggle with the wording, because who is the arbiter of what is a demonstrable benefit? I don't deny that in these circumstances 10% inflation, that is. But do we get a say in that? Are you guys the arbiters? You say that's it's like a rule you had before, that a member of the board who misses 4 meetings has been softened to allow for exceptional circumstances. Well, who defines exceptional circumstances? Who defines demonstrable benefits? That's what I would seek clarification on, if it's possible.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is the same as any other document or contract or anything else. There's an ultimate arbiter, which is some kind of legal process if you ever got there, but we're accountable to you, and we're answerable to you as our members. We can have that as a members forum question. We can have it as an update from Michael on where memberships are going, all that kind of thing. But this is a practical answer now. It's common sense, I would think, is the approach on that. And what is an exceptional circumstance? You don't know till you see it, but when you see it, you know it's exceptional. Hope that helps. Okay, are we done, I think?
Okay, so we're happy to move forward on this one?
So yeah, I'd like to put that,
Okay.
the resolution per the notice to
Les,
the members.
Can you second?
I second the motion.
Can I ask all those in favour of this motion to show their hands?
Again, this is worth a count on this one, because it's kind of relatively tight, so it's worth if we do a count.
Yeah. 88.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All
those against?
Vote against, please show their hands.
You get 13?
I get 18.
Oh, I missed 2. I missed 3 in a row. I was leaning back too much. Take me back to the world of PLCs. 18.
17.
Right, so we have, thank you everybody, we have 88 for and 17 against, which is in excess of 2/3, and the proxy votes were 69% in favour, which was again more than 2/3, so overall more than 2/3, motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's section 11 done. Thank you everybody for engaging in that. I feel like I knew it was going to be a tough gig, but that was tougher than I expected. But thank you for that. And can I suggest we pick up a theme that we were talking about before this meeting, that we'd love our first member forum to pick up a lot of the topics that we've discussed here around voting, SGMs, board seats, all that kind of thing. So we'd like to do that at our first member forum. So hand back to Howard.
Thanks very much, James. Can I move us on now to members' petition item 1? I think, can I introduce Alan? He wants to say a few words to support the item in the petition. Alan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, in order to introduce this item, I think people just need to have a little bit of context. I'm delighted to see that we've had 3 really good candidates from the membership that the members have been able to vote and elect to go to the board to look after member services and member communications from a board oversight perspective. But back when these resolutions were tabled in January, that outcome didn't seem likely. And I'd just like to explain the circumstances so we can move on. At that time, the club had put out 2 adverts saying that they were going to interview candidates and the preferred choice would be co-opted onto the board subject to a formal ratification at the AGM. Now that obviously is just the standard way that the nominations committee does operate. It interviews, it tries its best in a professional way to find the most suitable candidate, it makes its recommendations to the board does whatever it does, and then a candidate emerges at the AGM for the members to vote for. And what this resolution item is trying to get a discussion on is that we feel it's drifted a little too far and that members aren't engaged enough in the choice of who represents them on the board. We simply put our hands up for whoever is put in front of us, and over time that has coincided with a drift in satisfaction about member issues and member services. So I don't want to labour the point because the chairman's addressed that full on in his talk today, and I think we can take him at his word and work together in a spirit of cooperation on that. But I do want to make the clear point that there's 2 elements to this. One is that reasonably suitable members are considered and allowed to come forward for election and aren't blocked by a nomination committee process unnecessarily. None of us in this room want unsuitable people put forward for election. But also the second element that's really important is that members have some choice in who actually gets onto the board. So you can, I would say, you only take it so far that you will determine the best candidate in all occasions, that it's good to have member engagement and for people to go on to the board feeling that the members sent them there out of choice, not because it was either have this treasurer or no treasurer, which is not a choice that any of us want to contemplate. And it's not really the way we should go about things generally. So with that in mind, I don't propose to labour this item any further. I'm quite happy to take the chairman at his word and look to use the member forums and other such gatherings to try and take this forward in a constructive way.
No.
Right, Sarah.
Thanks, Alan.
So I propose the rule change relating to the Nominations Committee and the wording of the resolution as outlined in the papers.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Can I ask all members in favour to put their hands up? Seems pretty clear.
Okay, that's fine. Could we do those against?
Any against?
You're not voting against your own resolution, Alan.
He's got
I think the important message here is that the not only we look fairly unanimous in the room, but we had 89% approval on the proxies as well. So it was a fairly compelling response to that point.
Can we move on to member petitions 2 and 3? Same, Alan. Do you wish to introduce or say any few words to support these 2 remaining items?
So I'll just take them in order.
What did you say?
He's just checking on this.
So item 13, which discusses the number of areas where members have concerned that the club rules weren't followed in decisions made by the club. I think the papers present an accurate summary of the points for and against those items, and I think members can see that and form their own judgments on that matter. The one area I do wish just to formally put on the record, not with any desire to reopen old issues or to go back over old ground, but I don't think it is correct to say that the SGM originally called was moot, because the SGM had a specific goal in mind. I know, because it was part of the campaign I lived and breathed last summer to help protect first-class cricket from being reduced. And the goal was to tie, Daniel, you said it yourself at the member forum, you spoke very well at the member forum, when you said, please don't tie the club's hands, please don't send me into negotiations saying I've got to oppose a reduction in first-class cricket or one thing. That's exactly what the SGM motion that was originally called was seeking to put to the vote. So by not having that vote, members had no opportunity to express whether they did in fact want to send you into those negotiations with one arm tied behind your back or not. And many of us did, and in the end, when we had the vote, most people didn't, so that's fine. But I just want to correct what was said in the AGM papers, that original SGM wasn't moot. And there are an awful lot of people who are deeply suspicious still that actually the SGM was pulled because the votes in the proxies signalled that it was going to be lost. I doubt it was that myself, but there's an awful lot of people who do think that, and you just should be aware of that in a spirit of openness. But I don't think we need to labour too much about the SGMs of the past.
Andy, do you want to comment?
No, I think we're fine. I think the rule changes, as you say, are covered in the paper, so hopefully you're all right with that, Alan, and we can move straight to the vote.
I don't think there is a vote on this.
And the petitions.
There's no
rule breaches. I mean,
there's no vote on this.
I think there's a gentleman here with a point.
Can I? Sorry, one more question here. Thank you.
It's not actually a question, it's actually a grave concern I have, because if you read the Constitution, it actually doesn't give you the opportunity to not hold an SGM. It doesn't give you the opportunity to not hold an SGM. Once an SGM has been called by the relative number of members, it has to be held. Whether you want it to or not, unfortunately, it's not something that you want ideally, but that is what the rules say. And it also states that if you, as a board, don't call it, that the members can call it. So I think the defence that it would have been better in your response to have said, yes, we perhaps should have called an SGM, we were in error there, we apologise, but we did it because we thought, etc., etc. So you can't defend it and say you didn't need to call it because you did.
Thank you for comments. I mean, I think we've responded.
I can actually tell you the section that covers it.
We don't need it, but we responded in detail in the papers. But thank you. Very
yeah,
much
but it is an important breach of the rules.
Thank you very much for making your comments.
Thank you. Alan, can I just quickly, do you want to say anything on voting rights, or are you content? You're content?
No, he wants to say a few
Yeah,
things.
thank you.
He wants to say something.
So I think this item, just to clarify what's happening with item 14, is there's two specific aspects that it picks up Mr. Schindler's concerns also about members and who's a voting member and who's not a voting member. We are going to have a members forum where we're going to discuss what the minimum level of commitment, be it 5 days, 10 days, or whatever it is, to carry voting rights. And the members will have an open discussion at a forum, and that will form the basis of how we go forward in future years. And that, to me, is exactly what this asks for. So I don't think there's anything more to say other than thank you very much for listening and responding constructively.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question at the back.
First, the question at the back. Thank you. We've got...
I just wanted to kind of pick up, I know we're going to pick up on the MGR, but I just wanted to pick up regarding the members' voting rights. I do think we need to have a wider discussion around it, because going down the road of limiting how many days you have to be here to have a right in the vote, when members like myself don't have the ability to attend 30-odd days worth of cricket. I work 7 days a week. I have a limited number of time I can come. And actually, if we go down the road of you have to have a high level of attendance to a first-class game, for example, or List A games, other than other forms of the cricket, is danger. I think there's a number of new members that have come on board that support certain areas of the club. In particular, my area is the funder team. And actually, if we don't have a say, it's a very dangerous road to go down.
Thank you. Any other comments? Right, thank you. Can I close that?
Can I just encourage members to come to this forum, because I think this is an important topic, and I think during the consultations there were clearly different views on this. That's why I think we've all agreed that there needs to be a follow-up forum on this. So I would just encourage participation in that so we get to the right solution.
Right, any other business?
Can I just raise one point of other business, which is something that I would just like to thank Andrew Flintoff for his time on the board. He is not standing, as you know, at this meeting for re-election. He has been an important member of the board and a great input on the cricket side in particular, and worked with John on the cricket group. We wish him all the best on his recovery from his injuries that he sustained, and hope that he has a positive future and stays very close to us. And I'd just like to put it on record that we give him thanks and wish him all the best for the future.
Thank you. Lee, can you just give a brief summary of the questions that have been asked of us?
Yeah, so before we go into an open Q&A, just to make you aware that there were a number of questions that were raised in advance, which I asked for, because it does give us the opportunity, where they're quite detailed, just to spend a bit more time preparing answers for them. A number of those questions were answered individually by email response, particularly where they were kind of very unique and specific to the individual and weren't necessarily of the same interest for the wider membership. However, there were a number that were of interest, and we've tried to pick a lot of those up as we've gone through the meeting, including those raised in the finance report and a couple that were picked up in the chair's report, etc. There was one question, however, that was raised, and it was a cricket question, and it's directed at John Abrahams. So I'll ask the question, and if John's okay to answer this, that'd be good. So, can John give an overview of how the board oversees the work of the cricket department, with the following specific covered? How does our investment in elite player recruitment and retention compare to the leading test ground counties in Division 1, i.e. Warwickshire, Surrey, Notts and Hampshire, given our significantly reduced spending in this area over the last 4 years?
Thank you. First of all, I think, just to clarify, we now have a cricket development group, which I chair. and it includes Mark Chilton and Glenn Chappell, who oversee the elite men's programme, David Thorley and Paul Shaw, who oversee the elite women's programme, and we also have James also represents the board on that group, and we also include Mike Watkinson, and we did include Andrew Flintoff, and I am still hoping that when Andrew does recover, he'll be able to rejoin the cricket development group, because as was mentioned, he has a lot of experience. He still has a love for Lancashire cricket, and I think not to use that as a resource would be stupid. And the cricket development group meets as and when required. We've got a meeting next week where we will review the first part of the season, both in the men's game and in the women's game as well. So hopefully that will answer that part of it. The second part, which is how Lancashire compared to other first class counties, and I'd like to thank Mark for this information. Lancashire have recruited 4 players over the last 4 years, elite players, I think you would call them. Warwickshire have recruited 5, one of whom is Tim Bresnan, who's retired from the game now. Surrey have recruited 5 as well, included Hashim Amla as a Colpack player, and Hampshire recruited 3 and Nottinghamshire 4. So that's how we stand in comparison to the other clubs in the first division. I think that's what the gist of the question was. Have I got that right, Mr. Hyam? Yeah.
Get to significantly reduce spending, because we have.
Can I? James has just prompted me, which is the second part of the question is significantly reduced spending. I just wondered what that applies to and how you came about deciding that that's the case now.
I think Mark's already agreed. Just address.
Is it the classification, Daniel?
Yes.
Why don't you jump in?
Sorry, let me jump in here. Sorry, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There is a clarification. There hasn't been a reduction. What we need to look at in our accounts is the classification. What's happened is, people may not realise, when we have players play for England, we get compensation from England for what's called mismatch payments for those players not being available to us. So what we do in our accounts is it effectively offsets the player salaries. So you get a net, so it looks like a significant reduction. What I can tell you is we have not reduced player expenditure. We've increased it, and we are up at over 90% of salary cap. And the commitment from the board is to try and get as close to salary cap as we can. Although, as Mark says, we've currently got 27 first-team men's players, which is a lot.
Thanks, Daniel. Didn't move my lips then.
Okay. Anything else to add to that, John?
Just to say, as Mark's rightly pointed out, there's no guarantee of that amount. It just depends on people getting selected for England, so you can't sort of put it in the budget, and that's why it can't be included. For example, if people playing in the IPL, there's also some payment back to the club for those players missing matches.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Are there any other questions from the audience which people would be minded to raise with us? Sir.
Can I just go back to a question that was raised earlier and which the chairman responded to, which was the suggestion that county clubs might rebrand as city-based clubs for future T20, and the chairman said there's been no communication from the ECB on that at all, which I perfectly accept. But of course, members such as myself will have read about that proposal in the press. So I'm a bit surprised that the club hasn't rung up the ECB and say, oh, what on earth is going on here, please? Can you enlighten us?
So just so you know, I work in sport a lot, and if you know the sports media in this country, you'll take a lot of what they write with a big pinch of salt. That was not attributed to anyone from the ECB or anywhere. It was just someone had spoken to someone and said it was out there. And I think, though, if you read that article, it's talking about the 100. It's talking about the 100 becoming a T20 tournament, not about all our other Lancashire tournaments. There is no way that we are changing the name of Lancashire Cricket to a city-based name. I think that was specifically referring to that. I don't know where it came from, I can only speculate, but there has been no communication, and I think if I speak to the ECB, they'll say they don't know where it came from either, but we don't feel a need to, because otherwise we'd be responding to things all the time. So I don't know what that is, and it's certainly not going to happen. We are proud of the name Lancashire. It's what we are, and we're not going to talk about changing the name of Lancashire to anything other than Lancashire.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, gentleman down here.
There was a gentleman at the front who, in an earlier presentation, put up a calendar of events going on at the club over 12 months, the Q&As and the coffee mornings, whatever. I don't recall seeing that, but I would like to see that again, or maybe put it up on the website. I think that would be something useful.
We'll send a members' email out, update. We'll do that straight away.
Okay. And the other thing is, with the problems that were experienced this year with the membership card and membership packs, I'd be interested to know the original decision, what the cost saving would have been by posting that abroad, shall we say, having the work done abroad, rather than trying to find a local supplier. Which obviously I'm not trying to be clever with in hindsight, but one always tries, as a club, tries to support the local community. Was there really a substantial saving in farming that out rather than trying to produce that locally?
Just to reiterate Michael's comments earlier, we sincerely apologise for the inconvenience caused. We did use a local supplier. They subcontracted it overseas. We're reviewing the whole process, and I think now, as was alluded to, I think with the question that you raised earlier, I'm delighted to confirm that once the rule changes are updated with the FCA, we have significant digital abilities that we don't have this year, which will enable us to look at, and it's better for sustainability as well, to look at as many digital passes as we can. So I think we've learnt a lot of lessons from this year in terms of both our supply base and in terms of now with the rule change about what we can do digitally rather than physical paper and packs. But thank you for the question.
Can I just add that there's food and drink available in the next room, so as an incentive to not ask too many more questions, there's food and drink available. But sorry, I wasn't trying to be flippant.
Sorry,
I know you had another question.
I think there is one more person who had his hand up.
Just one quick question. I think a lot of us have a hell of a lot of difficulty booking tickets and all sorts on the members portal. Is there any plans to review that and try to make it a little bit more oldies friendly, because old people like me struggle with it?
Angela?
Yeah, we appreciate that with some people it is quite challenging and difficult. Again, what I would probably propose is in the members' forums that are coming up, maybe there is a session around that where we can kind of get a little bit more input in terms of, you know, the detail around what you're finding difficult and challenging, so we can work through that. And again, it was suggested a while ago that we do potentially kind of like some workshops so that we can help support that. Because the digital age is not going to go away. You know, the ticket office will help members as much as they possibly can that are struggling with that. But yeah, I would propose that that's something that we look forward to in the future, and hopefully that will help.
Thanks very much, Angela. On that basis, I'm going to declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thanks very much for your participation and for your constructive approach. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you. Please go and have some food at the back and a free drink courtesy of the chairman. Thank you very much.
You're paying. Andy.